Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another episode of Blasphemers Bible. And we're starting book 3 of a never ending story of Psalms. Well, it's not even a story in it. It's at this point, we're just, filleting your favorite phantasm, book 3. Any opening comments?
Uh, Actually, will be a bit interesting because Psalms 73 through 83 are what we call the Asaphite Psalms, and from what I've gathered, it is generally agreed among at least the commentators that I've read that these Psalms are written circa not post-exilic, rather pre-exilic era, around the time when the Northern Kingdom was destroyed by the Assyrians. So it is going to be an interesting one.
And Lawrence is in an odd mood today, I see.
I don't know what you're talking about. This is how I always dressed. I looked at myself in the mirror. I said, "Oh wow, you're so beautiful. You need some glasses." So that's what I did. I put on some glasses because that's what I said when I saw myself.
Okay. All right. So shall we dive right into it?
I was actually really debating on what kind of on what kind of character I should do, but I don't know. I just landed on Trump.
I think the glasses look good, Lawrence.
Thanks for coming in. Thanks for tuning in, folks.
Macho Man. Do Macho Man.
I could have done Macho Man.
I think the glasses look good on you. Hides most of your face.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Stop.
You're right. No, it also because I just don't sleep anymore, so like my eyes are always tired. So you're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah. Besides, aviators always look awesome.
When I got these glasses, so
I don't think I've even ever had.
There's this show Hot Ones, and they were selling a hot sauce that I wanted to get, and I did get the hot sauce, but I didn't know that it came with these sunglasses. So yeah, I guess I have Hot Ones sunglasses, limited edition.
All right. So jumping right into it then. We have to give the title, Plea for Relief from Oppressors.
That's not really the title. It's just the title that the specific Christian Bible that you read.
Yeah,
has.
there's titles that were included and this is why it's so confusing sometimes. There are titles that are included as like part of the psalm. So like sometimes they'll have them as like the first verse, for example. But then like all Bibles do this thing where they give like titles for like sections, right? So if you go into like any part of like the New Testament, like before a story starts, it's going to give you like a little title like that. So that's the part that would come beforehand. So like here, like a Psalm of Asaph is not the one that like, the biblical, like modern day biblical editors gave. It's like that's the older one that is sometimes included as a part of the psalm. So to make sure there's no confusion.
And
even though I feel like the way I explained it is still confusing.
Yeah, in the Jewish copies of the Hebrew Bible, those sort of titles are just the first verse or part of the first verse in this example.
Well, yeah, they're not all exactly long enough to be a verse. The only title I have here is a Psalm of Asaph, which okay.
Yeah. So in the Hebrew Bible, it's one verse is a Psalm of Asaph, and then the next like line altogether is one verse.
All right, well, I'm going to jump into it then. Truly, God is good to Israel, to those who are pure of heart. But as for me, my feet have almost stumbled. My steps had nearly slipped, for I was envious of the arrogant. I saw the prosperity of the wicked, for they have no pain. Their bodies are sound and sleek. They are not in trouble as others are. They are not plagued like other people. Therefore, pride is their necklace. Violence covers them like a garment. Their eyes swell out with fatness. Their hearts overflow with follies. They scoff and speak with malice. Loftily they threaten oppression. They set their mouths against heaven, and their tongues range the earth. Therefore the people turn and praise them, and find no fault in them. Gosh, this all sounds familiar. And they say, how can God know? Is there knowledge in the Most High? Such are the wicked, always at ease. They increase in riches. All in vain I have kept my heart clean and washed my hands in innocence. For all day long I have plagued, and I am punished every morning. If I had said, I will walk on this way, I would have been untrue to the circle of your children. But when I thought how to understand this, it seemed to me a wearisome task, until I went into the sanctuary of God. Then I perceived their end. Truly, you set them in slippery places. You make them fall to ruin. How they are destroyed in a moment, swept away utterly by terrors. They are like a dream when one awakes. On awakening, you despise the phantoms. When my soul was embittered, when I was pricked in heart, I was stupid and ignorant. I was like a brute beast toward you. Nevertheless, I am continually with you. You hold my right hand. You guide me with your counsel. And afterward, you will receive me with honor. Whom have I in heaven but you? And there is nothing on earth that I desire other than you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Indeed, those who are far from you will perish, but you put an end to those who are false to you. But for me, it is good to be near God. I have made my Lord God my refuge, to tell of all your works. The end.
The end of
I'm
it.
sorry. Surely you are good to Israel? I just burst out into hysterical laughter at that. I had to mute myself because, like, whether you go with the mythology or the actual history, no, the fuck he isn't.
Right, yeah,
His
yeah. he's
entire book
pretty
is God fucking over Israel and never keeping his word to them and blaming them for every time he fails them.
Well, it is interesting because Tate notes that the inclinations of most 20th century commentators in rejecting to Israel for to the upright, i.e. Le Israel for Le Yashar El, is reflected in textual notes of BHS. There is much to say for it, since it retains the consonantal text, improves the meter, and offers a good parallelism between upright and pure in heart. However, it is not without problems, nor the least of which is that there is absolutely no textual evidence for the suggested reading, so the MT should be retained.
I mean, the thing is, a lot of textual changes like that, or maybe I shouldn't say a lot, it's actually very few comparatively, but some of this stuff would have happened very early, and if they haven't early enough, then yeah, unfortunately we're not going to have evidence for it. But I think the issue with especially just having this just going by the Masoretic text, which like scholars don't, they have other sources, right? But the issue with just like defaulting to it is that it's late, very late. So there is an issue with just defaulting to it. But that I do like that hypothesis that it was the righteous.
At least it makes some linguistic sense.
Sure, I can definitely see that argument.
Yeah, though I see that I don't know who the commentator exactly is. I think it's Zenger, who says that that the reference to Israel is attributable to the reduction that set Psalm 73 its texts, or in the psalm read, "Good to the upright is El," but since the text form of the Asaph redaction is canonized, quote unquote, and the primary version is, from a literary critical point of view, a preliminary stage, quote unquote, of the final version. In translating the text, we must choose Israel.
So there were a few things I wanted to note here, and maybe this was just my my confusion from reading it. So in the part, where was it? Verses 15 through 20. So like I get like the second part, right? Because the second half of that section, like we've seen that stuff a million times, right? Like just in the same way that the wicked will like set up traps to ensnare the righteous, they're gonna fall into them, right? So in this one, it uses truly you set them in slippery places. I remember, I forget which psalm it was, but I remember we did have another psalm that had slippery places, but I think there was like some textual issue with that where it could have been something else. I'll have to go back and check, but 100% we went over a slippery places thing. So I think someone said it actually should have meant like complete destruction or something. I think that's me going off of memory. So I understand that, and how fleeting the wicked are, but when it says here, when it comes to how he figured this out, he says, yeah, when I thought how to understand this, it seemed to me a wearisome task until I went into the sanctuary of God. Then I perceived their end. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but like from this reading, at least, this sounds like a kind of revelatory, visionary experience. It sounds very Oracle of Delphi-esque.
So Zenger notes that there are some adherents to the thesis that verse 17 describes a concrete visit to the temple, but he also notes a metaphorical interpretation. I'm trying really to understand what. Okay, Michel insists more strongly on the content of the new insight given to the petitioner. There is a long comment by Kittel.
Okay, well, while you read that, Kip, how do you feel about that verse?
I'm sorry. I've been doing other things and
Oh
not
my
paying
God.
any attention at all. My bad. I promise I'll pay attention now. But I was.
Oh, brother.
I feel shame.
We invite you.
I know. How terrible of me, right? I finally show up for a show, and then I'm just not even.
Game.
This
I
is
need a
how
bell.
you treat us.
So,
He's watching
but
cat videos on another channel.
If I heard the question correctly, I mean it's. I believe David wrote this psalm, right?
Asaph.
Asaph.
I mean, technically. I mean,
Yes,
that psalm is a psalm for Asaph.
Yes.
Did David write anything?
No.
No.
Well, I mean, if he was a king, he might have written some things, but we have no. I don't know.
Maybe his name at some point.
The Art of the Deal.
That's not a king.
And
That's
he didn't write that.
an orangutan in spray tan.
I mean, I think at that point too in history, you probably have to like there's legitimate questions about how large a kingdom Judah was at the time of David, like in the 10th century, and whether they would have had the resources to support any sort of scribal apparatus. So it's complicated.
It's part of the mythology of David, though. This heartwarming narrative of the poor shepherd boy who played his lute for the sheep and bravely fought with nothing but a stick and a stone, and blah 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 blah. It's all very narratively driven.
For the record, I'm one of those very, very conservative scholars who still maintains that there was an actual David, and that we might even be able to access some of the history of him through the narratives about him. But it's it's complicated.
See, I
Yeah.
agree that there was a historical David, but I'm much more doubtful of what we can know about him through the Bible, at least.
Okay,
I am more confident that we can I think we can know more about Jesus than we can about David.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it only makes sense because Jesus lived pretty recently than David.
No, I'm talking about from the sources, and considering like how
Yeah.
late they are after
So,
the event.
There is
Sorry to derail.
So there is Hosfeld and Zenger's opinion that the reading is a metaphorical one, and they know that it is true that the Hebrew phrase Mikdashei El means sanctuaries of God or El, actually the sacred precincts of the temple to the extent that it is the place of divine presence, and accordingly going into the sanctuary of God refers to entry into the temple, but that does not determine the meaning of the expression. The Psalms in particular reveal an intensive metaphorization of the temple that seizes on the real conditions and actions and transforms them into theological statements. And the series of statements according to which the wicked experience the temple not as a house of refuge, but as the place of death, is as relevant in our context as the complex of ideas according to which only the righteous will experience goodness, blessing, and strength in the temple or from it.
That's a fair point. It can also be like from the point of view of, when you meditate and you worship, then you think about things the way you've been programmed to think about them. The appeal of apocalypse is that someday everyone's going to know that you were right. So being, oh, why are they getting everything they want? Why are they getting away with it? Well, someday they won't. Someday God will get them back and I'll be proven right. It's, he says he sees their end. He doesn't, but he's telling himself he does.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, he definitely not literally seeing their end, but like he's describing like their fleeting nature, because like earlier on he's all like, these guys have essentially they've not received consequences for their actions. They still seem on the face of it very successful. So when he perceives their end, he even tells you like they are like a dream when one awakes. On awakening, you despise their phantoms. And yeah, I mean that whole section is about how fleeting the nature of that is.
Yeah, and
he
the
doesn't
idea
literally
that it
see
won't last forever. But I was under the impression that all of our lives are reasonably fleeting because we're mortal and we don't get to live forever or have to,
Yes.
thankfully.
You're totally right, but remember, he's
cocaine
using it
and
as-
orgies for everyone.
I fucking wish. No, but remember, he's using it as copium. He's using it as copium.
Oh, yeah,
That's the
obviously. I mean, that's literally what I said. But yeah. I just thought cocaine and orgies were probably better than copium.
Okay, so should I write the commentary? No, right. I mean, the commentary. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, the exact genre of Psalm 73 is unclear. Tanner notes that scholars fluctuate between didactic or wisdom psalm, like Krauss, McCann, Terrien, and Zenger, or lament, according to Westermann, and or first-person narration or testimony, according to J.L. Crenshaw. Gerstenberger suggested that the psalm is a dramatic confession of faith, probably involving Torah piety, even if explicit vocabulary in this sense is missing. Tate suggested that the psalm belongs to the large genre of testimony, which encompass both the thanksgiving type of psalm and the reflection. He writes that Psalm 73 seems more nearly to be a reflection than a thanksgiving, though these two types are similar. Regarding the Sitz im Leben, Tate notes that opinions differ over whether the psalm is primarily a wisdom composition or a cultic psalm. For example, Schmidt writes that the psalmist may have seen a wicked man having a heart attack and dying in the temple courts, and literally saw the end, quote-unquote, of the wicked as described in verse 17. Cohen sees the psalm as cultic, but highly personal. Quote, the outspoken confession of a man whose faith has been sorely tested, End quote. Perdue writes that the psalm is a theological reflection concerning, quote, the good fortune of the wicked and the validity of the lament thanksgiving response to the people of suffering, end quote. Perdue also argues that the sage who speaks in the psalm has found that an intellectual understanding of evil was beyond his grasp, and that the only way to deal with the incongruities between a theology of retribution and personal experience was through a cultic experience which transcended the problem. Thus, he takes verse 17 as referring to some sort of theophanic experience in a sanctuary, while others like Buchamps, Lindgren, and Woodwine suggest a corporate cultic setting. Tate writes that the suggestion that the speaker is the king performing a cultic function, or that the psalm is part of the autumn feast of the covenant, seems unjustifiably speculative. He notes that Krauss already pointed out that seeking a specific speaker is pointless, for it is, quote, characteristic of didactic poems in the wisdom tradition that they are marked by autobiographical stylization, end quote. Zenger writes that the theological and social historical considerations place the time and milieu in which this psalm originated in the 5th century. That's it.
I think we
Now I'm wishing I had paid attention. So.
I wish you did too. But I do like the interpretation of like, oh, he saw someone literally like die in the temple. I do like that.
Cool.
But I feel like in the way that death is usually spoken of in biblical texts, it's like, especially in like a psalm or something, right? Like they really go over the top, like to describe like death or near death. So like if this is the thing that really made the psalmist have a realization that life is fleeting, as if he needed that, but whatever, then I don't know. I just think it would have been a bit more explicit than just
death is not special, especially not in this era of humanity. We're a little too insulated from it in the modern world to be realistic. These bitches saw death all the goddamn time. All the time. This was not a revelation. They were well aware you could die at any time for no goddamn reason.
Right. So, I just sorry, Aaron. I find it very if it was like a death in the temple that made him realize that, I'm like, has he not seen death other places? So like, yeah.
Well, I tend to think it's more about counting on the judgment of God to someday come through for you and it'll all be vindicated, blah, 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 blah. The same excuse they always give for why God never does anything that he says he will, but someday.
So shut up, Matt, says Lawrence. Given your WWE expertise, which wrestler would each of the panel be?
Oh, okay. So Aaron, you would obviously be the Undertaker.
Yes, obviously.
Kip, you would be Bret the Hitman Hart.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah. Easily.
Wow.
Tomer, you would be Jinder Mahal before he was jacked.
I have no fucking idea. Okay.
Lilith, I mean, it might just be the red hair, but you're giving me Lita energy for sure.
I'll have to look up my opinion on that.
Okay. And
I guess she's a bit of a ball buster.
She's fucking badass. Love Lita. Except for the time she cheated on Matt Hardy. That was pretty fucked up. But that was like 20-something years ago.
She looks a bit like Ginger Spice.
I don't even know what Ginger Spice looks like.
You don't know? Really? Wow.
I don't remember all their names.
I'm guessing that was the redhead.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It was indeed.
Okay. And Isaac, like the thing is, if you were you're giving Austin Theory, but you're not enough of an asshole to be Austin Theory. Maybe Grayson Waller. You kind of have that kind of comedic style.
Jason Waller.
Grayson Waller. I think you two
Watch
have
me
a
steaming.
similar senses of humor. He's an
Okay.
Australian guy, though.
Yeah.
I think Tomer's ignoring us.
Probably, yeah.
This hits very close to home, though, I have to say.
Well, no, because the thing is, for Kip, I had to pick Bret Hart because not only is he Canadian, but he's also the excellence of execution.
Oh, that's very kind of you. He's also maybe the most famous Calgarian
That would make
on
sense
the planet. So, and I have and there's I mean the Hart family is a local legend unto itself. You'd love them, Aaron. They're kind of an amazing, crazy circus family.
They really are.
They really are. They actually
The Hart Dungeon.
Not just that, but what something that a lot of people are unaware of is that I grew up in the city of Calgary, and they were ever present. There's 9. The Harts had 9 children, and all of them were involved in wrestling in some capacity. So, like the boys all were professional wrestlers, and but also substitute taught in the local school system. So most of us ended up with one of them as a substitute teacher at some point.
That's hilarious.
Which was kind of wild, right? But the local legends run deep. Before the city expanded, they had this enormous property, this huge house on the west side of the city. And before the city limits extended beyond their house to kind of encompass it, they actually had and this is true, they had a pet black bear that they kept chained up on the front lawn. Yeah. Because they're crazy people. They're just crazy. Well, what are you going to do with a black bear, Lilith? Honestly, if you're going to attempt
Cuddle.
Okay.
The same thing you would do with like when you have tigers and such. You don't put them on chains.
I guess, yeah, but they're crazy people, right? They're crazy people with money who torture people in their basement and live on the outskirts of town. That's
basically.
Yeah.
Hart family dungeon.
Yeah. So.
Okay. And then we've got another comment that Alira the Free sent 50 RN Raw gift memberships.
Woo! Alira! And I'm totally going to listen to that song later. I just, I'm supposed to pay attention here.
Truth be told, part of the reason I'm here is because I received a gift membership last.
Alira! Coming in clutch.
About bloody time.
It took many, many, many tries, and I apologize for that.
At least you're here to tell us why these psalms are so.
Except for this one, which I wasn't listening to, but I'm paying attention now. I promise.
Okay, so moving on to 74, are we?
Yes.
Yep, I got that here. A Maskil of Asaph, or is it Asaph? I don't actually know. Asaph, I guess.
Asaph.
Yeah.
Oh God, why do you cast us off forever? I almost just forgot the word off was in there. Why does your anger smoke against the sheep of your pasture? Remember your congregation, which you acquired long ago, which you redeemed to the tribe of your heritage. Remember Mount Zion, where you came to dwell. Direct your steps to the perpetual ruins. The enemy has destroyed everything in the sanctuary. Your foes have roared within your holy place. They set up their emblems there. At the upper entrance, they hacked the wooden trellis? Trellis? How do you say that?
Trellis.
Okay.
Wait a second. Yeah.
I don't actually know. I've never even seen that word before. The wooden trellis with axes. And then, with hatchets and hammers, they smashed all its carved work. They set your sanctuary on fire. They desecrated the dwelling place of your name. bringing it to the ground. They said to themselves, "We will utterly subdue them." They burned all the meeting places of God in the land. We do not see our emblems. There is no longer any prophet, and there is no one among us who knows how long. How long, O God, is the foe to scoff? Is the enemy to revile your name forever? Why do you hold back your hand? Why do you keep your hand in your bosom? Yet God, my King, is from of old, working salvation in the earth. You divided the sea by your might. You broke the heads of the dragons in the waters. You crushed the heads of Leviathan. You gave him as food for the creatures of the wilderness. You okay? Anyways, you gave him as food for the creatures of the wilderness. You cut openings for springs and torrents. You dried up ever-flowing streams. Yours is the day. Yours is also the night. You established the luminaries in the sun. You have fixed all the bounds of the earth. You made summer and winter. Remember this, O Lord, how the enemy scoffs, and an impious people reviles your name. Do not deliver the soul of your dove to the wild animals. Do not forget the life of your poor forever. Have regard for your covenant, for the dark places of the land are full of haunts of violence. Do not let the downtrodden be put to shame. Let the poor and needy praise your name. Rise up, O God, plead your cause. Remember how the impious scoff at you all day long. Do not forget the clamor of your foes, the uproar of your adversaries that goes up continually. There is so much
My goodness.
cool
Yeah.
stuff in here.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
so much.
I have to say, I'm wondering about the descriptions of destructions of the holy place, because we know obviously the temple was destroyed. You said previously, Tomer, that these were set after Israel's collapse and a lot of refugees ran to Judah. So I'm wondering if this is
Wait,
describing.
I thought he said the opposite, didn't he? That
No, the
say
Assyrians had
pre?
taken over Israel. The Israelites, some of them escaped to
That's what
Judah.
I heard,
There were a lot
yeah.
of refugees, as one has in
Yeah.
war.
Essentially,
But
yeah.
could this then describe the burning down of the shrines at Dan
Sumerian?
and Beersheba, the Sumerian
even-
shrines? Yeah.
There's
Well, or even the high places, like those were the original place of worship for El, which I believe is the term used in this one.
I mean, yeah, there were temples in Samaria, right?
I
They're
think
sacred
that
places.
sorry.
They would have been
Sorry, go
all
ahead.
around the place. It
Yeah.
still would have been the high places.
I think
but yeah,
generally, like the dating here seems to be like exilic, around
It's-
circa 6th century.
the thing is, it's strange though, right? Because you have here, like when he's talking about, where is it? Oh my God, where was it? Oh right. So like initially when I was reading over this, like you get the idea of, oh, he's talking about the Exodus when you divided the sea by your might, but that's not it. We're talking about the creation, and this calls back to the chaos conf, right? So you have the splitting
Tiamat.
of Tiamat, right? Exactly, the splitting of Tiamat, and that's obviously why you have the reference to the dragons, the Leviathan, and then it goes over day and night and the stars. So it's very clearly another creation narrative that's hidden in here, and well, not really hidden. It's like blatant. There is also there's so much in here. So I think Kip already noted how there were many places of worship right before it was all centralized. So when they're talking about like they burned all the meeting places of God in the land, that would just be the high places. And there are, but it's weird though, right? Because the high places don't go down until later, at least according. Sorry, that's not. that would have been some kind of mythologized version of Josiah's reign. Then.
Right. But I think, I mean, in the destruction of Samaria, they would have they burned down the city, right? Like it would have included whatever ritual sites they had. And I'm not up on the archaeology of Samaria at all. So it'd be interesting to go back and look at that. But there's there would have every one of these larger cities in the region would have had their places of patron worship that were probably a little bit more distinct as well from the local shrines that dotted the landscape. There's a pretty interesting ongoing discussion among archaeologists about how to even define types of places of worship, like what is a temple versus what is a shrine.
Yeah.
It's like super complicated, right?
Yeah.
But so I mean, I don't know anything specific about it, but it seems very likely that in the destruction of Samaria, they would have destroyed local places of worship, which would have included a temple of sorts attached to the Acropolis, in the where the king lived and ruled.
Dr. Kill, I
Yeah.
want to show you something.
Okay.
Yeah, you remember Pirates of the Caribbean? You remember how there were
yeah.
ghost pirates? That's where I got my parrot.
Oh my God, he's so cool. He's like,
who's a good little dinosaur? You take care of Aaron. You peck him if he doesn't eat.
That way.
Good job. Good job.
That's
Now,
awesome.
Admittedly, when I first heard this, my first thought was the destruction of the temple, because that's such an iconic one. But yeah, you're right.
Where it goes, right?
And sometimes the deliberate desecration of sacred sites was absolutely a part of an invading army. In God and Anatomy, the Francesca Stavropolo, she talks about I don't remember what god it was for, but there was a high place, a sacred site, whatever. And they had literally built what looked like a giant toilet seat over the altar of another god that they were trying to divide. Basically, our god shits on your god.
They were that close to inventing the toilet.
Yeah, well, no, they had toilets of a sort. It was basically just, a toilet seat, but yeah. But yeah, it was it wasn't exactly made for human proportions either. It was clearly our god shits on your god, but it's petty as fuck. It also, if I'm right, and this is Northern Kingdom refugees running to the south and talking about how everything is different and how all their familiar sacred spaces are gone. It also talks about how all their symbols are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that is yet another indication that the Northern Kingdom worshipped a different god than the Yahweh of the Southern Kingdom.
Well, the language in this psalm too is there's no appearance in the entire psalm of the name Yahweh.
No.
The designations for the gods, El is mentioned, is it twice or three times? And then there's the generic Elohim, right? Which is like most often, I think, just like a general reference to a specific divine being without actually using their name. So I mean, that's not for nothing. Oh wait, Yahweh does appear.
Fair enough.
In verse, I just saw it. It's in verse 18. Yeah, okay.
And there was something else I wanted to point out. When, like, in the very beginning of this, like in verse 2, the congregation which you acquired long ago
Yeah.
No, hear me out here. Remember Mount Zion, where you came to dwell. This is very Deuteronomistic. Very.
Yeah.
So not only do you have like the place where his name is, the place where he's where he sits, right? The place he's chosen, but you also have the acquiring of it in Deuteronomy 32, 8 through 9. I think that's incredible. Where he was given this as his portion.
Yes, exactly, right? It also it's also somewhat, I mean, that's where my head goes. It's also somewhat reminiscent of the way that the Exodus conquest story is presented in the Song of Moses, where Yahweh leads the people into the land and sets up a temple, basically. Yeah. No, it's very cool. I kept on hearing it too, Lawrence, as you were reading it, the echoes of Deuteronomy 32 in this psalm.
Okay, so Psalm 74 is generally taken to be a community prayer song. Gerstenberger writes that apart from some uncertainties like invocation, hybrid opening, lack of confession or of guilt or innocence, etc., the formal elements are in best accordance with the general scheme of communal complaint. He writes that the more general background of the genre includes ancient Near Eastern lamentations over the destruction of city and sanctuary. The exact dating and setting of the psalm are unclear. Terrier notes that many critics have dated Psalm 74 to the Maccabean times, 2nd century BCE, for the temple was then profaned but not devastated by the forces of Antiochus Epiphanes. Krauss thought of the period between 586 to 520 BCE and the psalm as belonging to lament ceremonies from this period, as seen in Jeremiah 41:8, Zechariah 7:1-7, 8, 18, and 19. Tate notes that Young came to the tentative conclusion that the date and Cultic context were exilic, around the time of 2nd Isaiah. Tate writes that while the specific contexts of the psalm seem beyond our power to recover, I was blanking out. Tate writes that while the specific contexts of the psalm seem beyond our power to recover, though a date and setting among the people left behind in Palestine after 587 BCE are highly probable. He writes that the psalm exists for us not primarily as a historical or as a cultic document, but as a literary entity which generates its own intertextual context. Zenger suggested that the most likely time of origin, or the primary psalm, is the exile. He writes that the psalm is a confrontation with the shock to faith in God and the associated identity crisis of the congregation that praised the psalm, brought about by the destruction of the Jerusalem temple, but also by the crushing of other sanctuaries in Judah. He writes that it could originally have been used at services of lament in the temple precincts. He adds that the actualization of the primary psalm inserted in verses 19 through 21 confronts the social rejection that shook the temple congregation, quote unquote, in the 5th and 4th centuries BCE. This editing of the psalm parallels the destruction of the power with the destruction of the temple in 586 BCE, and at the same time submits it to the judgment of Yahweh, who must thereby prove his true divinity. That's it.
You don't have anything about verse 5?
What exactly about it?
It's not very. Well, the language is kind of hard to understand, and and translations are quite different about what's going on.
That's true.
I mean, JPS has, it is like men wielding axes against a gnarled tree. I think Lawrence mentioned a trellis.
Yeah, I just
Thicket.
wasn't even sure what that word was.
Yeah, and it's like, is it meaning? I mean, the Hebrew literally is like known, like something being picked up almost, as one lifts something up high, and then in the thicket of the trees, an axe, axes. So
But the
how you
worship of
understand that.
Asherah was associated with the trees, the sacred pole, the sacred groves, the trees in the high places. That was all very Asherah. Although she's not obviously explicitly mentioned here. It's
Right.
we
They were the ones
know
at a
she
distance.
was married, in concert with El and later Yahweh, depending on where and when you are. She was also worshipped, and those were her sacred
Right.
things.
That could have been a
So-
reference if this was an earlier text. Talking about like
Well,
other
and there would have
places of
still been
worship.
groves and sacred items in the northern ancestral places, even if they
Yeah.
were pretending that it wasn't for Asherah anymore.
Yeah.
There's
yeah,
still,
exactly.
hell, they had that bronze
Um,
serpent, and they came up with a whole backstory of how it really came from Moses, and then they still felt the need to destroy it.
Yeah.
And the Lyra the Free gave another 50 RN Raw gift memberships.
Woo, Lyra!
Yeah, so it is from what I'm reading now. It seems like verses 5 and 6 are it is generally agreed that they're difficult, but probably also corrupt.
Yeah.
So Zeng, I think it's Zenger and Hospital. I don't know if Zenger or Hospital specifically, but Zenger and Hospital note Eerdmans, who writes that verses 5 and 6 are untranslatable in the form in the Masoretic text, even though their content is more or less clear. They intend to illustrate the destruction of the temple with an image, probably a man swinging an axe in a thicket, and a particular object. But the semantic and grammatical problems connected with almost every word do not permit a reliable transmission.
Yeah. Steinsaltz has something like possibly it's like trying to give you an image of a man wantonly wreaking destruction with an axe, cutting all the branches off in a thicket of woods or whatever.
Yeah, Targum here reads, he strikes with a hammer like a man who raises his hands in a thicket of trees to cut with axes.
Interesting. Okay.
Shall we move on to Psalm 75?
Yes, please.
Yes.
And who's reading this one?
I am reading this one.
Okay.
For the director of music, to the
Very
tune of Do Not Destroy, a psalm of Asaph.
Do not.
Psalm 75, yes?
Yes, it is.
We give thanks to you, O God. We give thanks, for your name is near. Men tell of your wonderful deeds. They say, I choose the appointed time. It is I, you say, I choose the appointed time. It is I who judge uprightly. When the earth and all its people quake, it is I who hold its pillars firm. Selah. To the arrogant I say, boast no more. And to the wicked, do not lift up your horns. Do not lift up your horns against heaven. Do not speak with an outstretched neck. No one from the east or the west or from the desert can exalt a man, but it is God who judges. He brings one down, he exalts another. In the hand of the Lord is a cup full of foaming wine mixed with spices. He pours it out, and all the wicked of the earth drink it down to its very dregs. As for me, I will declare this forever. I will sing praise to the God of Jacob. I will cut off the horns of all the wicked, but the horns of the righteous will be lifted up.
So few things here. I mean, it's not very, it's not like directly in the text, but looks like verses 2 through 5 are thought to be spoken by God himself.
Yeah.
Where he's especially where he talks about, I'm the one who keeps the pillars steady. That's the pillars of the earth. And then in verse 6, this one was initially kind of weird, but it makes sense that like, for lack of a better term, salvation, protection will not come from any place on earth, any other nation. Rather, it's going to come from God. And then verse 8, this is a very, very common image, like drinking the cup of God's wrath. and this cup is the contents of the cup are going to be poured over all the wicked, so they will receive their judgment. This is such a common metaphor.
Oh yeah. Sometimes the wine is blood that God has crushed in his wine press or whatnot. It's really gross and gory. Yeah, it's pillars.
I
I'm
did want to
sorry.
say
I
that
just
the reference to horns is and wine is not necessarily a connection on the sense of like horns as in using horns as cups. It's probably
no. I think it's more like the bull's horns, the symbol
Yeah.
of El
Raising up
Elyon,
your
and also the symbol of
being.
power, like the
yeah.
Mhm.
the reason
Exactly,
they'd
yeah.
always paint horns on Moses in the old eye, horns of power.
But I think the
Yeah.
horns of Moses thing comes from a mistranslation.
It does.
Yeah, it
Because
does.
it's like
From the
'cause
Vulgate.
it says that Moses came down from
Shining
the
face.
mountain and had rays of light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the word for rays and horns is the same in Hebrew at least.
But the idea of horns metaphorically representing a person's power and kind of a crowning
Yeah.
but inherent form. See, there you go.
Yeah.
Aaron's always ready.
Aw, my horns are in my room.
Oh,
well,
it's
you know, Jewish
interesting.
people, we have to, when you turn 13, you get them shaved down. So
Oh, right, of course. Oh, you're a man now. So
Oh, it's interesting also to note that Hosfeld and Zenger note that there is a Deuteronomistic name theology taken up in verse 1, which is 2 in the Masoretic text, with the Shem theology. They note that the they quote from, who is it? They quote from Martin Keller that the theologumenon of Yahweh's Shem, proposed by the Deuteronomist, is an attempt to understand and secure anew the presence of Yahweh in a time without the temple, by pointedly interpreting Yahweh's presence as the presence of the Shem. According to this concept, Yahweh himself is in heaven, where he is not immediately affected by the effects surrounding the destruction of the city and temple, and his power can be diminished. However, through the extended figure of his Shem, he is still present in the now destroyed Makom and can legitimately be called upon.
Yeah, there's a really good section in Charles Gieshen's book, Angelomorphic Christology, which talks about the importance of like name theology or Shem theology and how it kind of was adapted for Jesus stuff.
Wonder what
it's kind of interesting how the name became the idol, because they weren't allowed to have idols, but the name became the idol.
Well, it's not just that. There's a lot more that kind of goes into it, because there are so many like ways that God shows up, so many ways that he talks to people, that each aspect of God is like kind of you could say like personified, but it's more like how would I say this, like hypostasized, like as like a hypostasis, as like its own kind. It kind of became its own thing, as like this emanation of God.
And I thought the Trinity was convoluted.
Oh, I mean, this is part of the reason why it's convoluted.
Yeah, exactly. This plays into a lot of the later two powers controversy. I'm sure he said something about it. I'd be interested to go back and look and see what Dan McClellan. I'm sure he's said something about this in his book. Not
certainly
the academic book. But yeah.
There's somebody I wish I could get on this show.
Yeah, that would be
cool.
nice. That would be really nice.
Just for one episode. I'm gonna send him an invitation. Pick when. You know, pick what part of the Bible that you'd like to be on the show for. Would love to have you. And I've talked to him a couple of times, and the thing that one of the many things that frustrates me about him is how believers will dismiss him on the most pathetic of excuses. Oh, well, he was baptized Mormon, so we can just dismiss all of his citations of historic scholars.
Yeah.
How the fuck does that make any sense?
Again, the context of Christianity has nothing to do with reality or academia. The context is authority, where they are the authority, and your correct adherence to whatever particular branch of the insane tangled bush of Christianity. So if he started with an authority from another branch, then he was always corrupted, and thus is a poisoned branch that can bear no good fruit.
But it doesn't. But he's like at some point he may be citing Aquinas, right? How can you blame? How can you say, well, McClellan is
theology? It's theology, not reality. Also, they're not going to look at his citations. They're looking to dismiss him before they can learn anything, Aaron.
I know, but he's talking.
They're running for their ignorance. It's worse than when they're running for their lives.
Yeah, it's just like I noticed a comment like moments ago where somebody on social media was telling me that I don't know anything about science. I should just shut up. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Why? Because I disagree with you on theology? And that is the argument. I disagree with their theology, so I don't know anything about science.
It's why they like to quote various scientists to us, even on things that they're not an authority on, because their idea of an authority is an absolute authority and this kind of absolute concept of truth that has nothing to do, again, with reality. So, if
and Dan Barker explained this to me in an interview that I had with him on video. He explained that their idea of authority is literally anybody who agrees with them.
Oh, yeah,
if you don't agree with
like
them,
the imams that are descended from Muhammad in you buy a backstory that gives them credit. It's very easy. There are many dramatic stories you can steal from.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think that like their idea of authority is just really weird, of any kind of authority, whether it be like kind of divine command-esque or whether it be actual expertise. But like I've talked to believers that said that all gods need, like, by definition, a god has to be all powerful. And I'm like, but what about all these other gods in history that have not been all powerful? And they're like, well, those aren't really gods. And I'm like, who says what? You don't get to make that choice. So like, it's just like they say that other gods can't exist because only their god is all powerful. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's
so
not
not
how it works.
The thousands of the hundreds of gods that were worshipped by thousands of people for however many centuries are all dismissed because they don't fit your favorite definition that only applies to your particular god.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. When they've had definitions used against them. So when they have no facts or evidence of any kind, they will change the definition of words in order to be correct, which is why you'll have idiots declaring that abortion is murder and putting laws together that will kill innocent women, forcing them to hold on to completely unviable pregnancies that are also actively killing them, because that's not what that means, despite the fact that the word means the removal of fetal tissue from the uterus. That's what it means. It could be a fucking placenta afterbirth. It's the only kind of afterbirth abortion that has ever existed. They're just liars, and they don't like to be called out, and they have no integrity, and they won't face it because of a trauma response or just because they have no soul.
That's been the biggest revelation for me. The one that for me is the most embarrassing. Realizing that there's never a good faith argument for this. There just isn't. That all apologetics is literally. It's not people confused. It's not that they don't know something, and that if I show them the information that I have that they don't, that maybe that'll change. No, it is that they are just lying. That was the hardest thing for me to figure out.
Yeah. And it's hard to tell the difference because, and if I may argue for compassion, a lot of the victims of indoctrination have been trained to live in fear. It's like living in a dictatorship or an abusive relationship. It's honestly kind of both. You are in a constant state of fear and defense so that you feel unable to question certain things. And the terror is real. The fear is real. I had no idea because I was always taught, perfect love casts out fear and we are fearless because we follow Jesus. That is the biggest bullshit. I have no way to describe how shocking to you, how much less fear is in my life now that I don't believe in God in totally unrelated things. I have always been afraid of spiders, freaked out about them all my life. I am so much less afraid of them. I have no idea how that is connected to faith in God, but I guarantee not being afraid all the time is part of it.
There is an actual thing there that, I mean, it was the Clergy Project realized that people who had been ministers for a long time and they get into they're middle-aged people and they realize that they don't believe their own bullshit anymore. And so they reach out to this network that tries to help them. Like, what do you do when you've been a preacher for all your life and you're like 45 or 50 or whatever? And what they were discovered, just incidentally, was that all of these people, they have less fear. They're more tolerant. They're more curious. They go back to school. They start taking night classes and shit. They start learning things like they never did before. You just end up as a better person overall when you give up faith.
It's easier to learn things when the cost of fucking up isn't being tortured.
Understood. And by the way, my wife used to be terrified of snakes. She was an old earth creationist. She was terrified of snakes. She used to have nightmares about hell. And of course, like you, she had a fear of spiders. Now she has a collection of tarantulas.
And snakes. You guys have all the snakes.
And snakes. And now she's got a motorcycle and is trying to figure out how to ride that. She's come a long way since coming out of faith.
I'm so glad for her.
Anyway, sorry for the sidetrack. I know that it's been annoying Tomer, who's been having a concert for himself and now must unmute to be superior to the rest of us.
Yes, indeed. I was previously reading about stochastic differential equations, but yeah, I got bored.
Okay. Are we moving on to another chapter at this point?
Excuse me.
No commentary yet, dude. Yeah.
Yes.
Do that.
Oh, I hadn't noticed.
Yes. Okay, so Hosfeld writes that Psalm 75 is an individual mixture of familiar elements. It joins divine speech in verses 3 and 4 and 11 to human speech in verses 2, 5 through 10. He writes that to that extent, it continues prophetic tradition in a specific fashion, combining indications of crisis with promises of divine judgment, which accomplishes the rescue of the righteous. He writes that accordingly, it is intimately tied to lament, but that is ultimately overcome. The psalm contains certain collective moments and sets them alongside expressions of the individual speaker. He writes that the synthesis of these two elements in Psalm 75 shows that the more than individual function of the petitioner or speaker for the group of the righteous. Gerstenberger wrote that the early Jewish communities started to organize themselves in the wake of deportations and destruction of their own national identity. He notes that Nehemiah 8 demonstrates the assembly in which Torah was read and explained. He suggests that Psalm 75 was composed and used in the homiletical tradition of these early Jewish communities. Tellien notes that like other pieces of the Asaph collection, Psalm 75 displays a striking affinity with the book of Jeremiah, as in 13, 12 through 14, 25, 15 through 29, 48, 25, and 26. He suggests that the date of the psalm could be late exilic, when 2nd Isaiah proclaimed the hopeful of renewal, 549 through 545 BCE. And Tate comments, quote, Psalm 75 is generally given a setting in the pre-exilic cult. Movinkel links it with the pre-exilic enthronement festival of Yahweh. Various commentators have suggested that it celebrates a historical event, such as the defeat of Sennacherib during Hezekiah's reign, mentioned in 2 Kings 1935, according to Kirkpatrick, or an episode of the Maccabean revolt, according to Dum. Such settings naturally provide their own date. There is nothing in the psalm itself to tie it to either of these events. However, and without a specific event as a setting, there is little evidence as to the psalm's date. A post-exilic dating is sometimes defended on the ground of the psalm's similarity to the Song of Hannah in 1 Samuel 2, 1-10, for example, Deisler. It is more probably an earlier psalm reworked after the exile, according to Anderson. It provided the people at worship with a chance to praise Yahweh and to hear his promise to judge the wicked and exalt the righteous in the context of the community. Either the king, according to Eaton, or more likely a prophet, according to Johnson, spoke on behalf of the worshipping community to God, and then on behalf of God to the community, elaborating on the oracle in verses 3-6. J. Jeremias concludes that the psalm is an abbreviated cult prophetic lament liturgy. End quote.
Yeah, I could see that. Call response. Well,
Yeah.
And then Alira the Free sent 50 RN Raw gift memberships.
Alira's awesome.
Yeah, we also have some, let's see, Shut Up Matt says, the more I listen to the educated panel and Dr. Kip, the more I see how clever Terry Pratchett is in Small Gods. Or in his
I don't know
books.
that.
Excellent.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't know
I
that
love
one
that.
either. So
Wait,
then-
so
Isn't
Yeah.
that
Where
Aaron,
will
isn't that
the-
shots fired?
yeah,
I don't know.
The educated panel and Dr. Kip. Just wanted to rub it in for Shut Up, Matt.
Okay.
Ah,
And then the spam goes here, says Lilith. These are the same people who had everyone in the U.S. declared female. Yes, everyone, because we were all female at conception.
that's
I-
true. That's true. They were trying to be anti-trans because, of course, they were, because nothing matters more than what 3% of the population do with the most private and
It's
intimate
not
parts
even
of their bodies.
3%. It's literally 1. It's either
Yeah,
just over 1 or it's just
I was
under 1%.
counting the intersex population among them because they're also going to be hit directly with a lot of this shit. But
Okay.
anyway, yeah, yeah, we're all we start. It's not until testosterone hits the womb at, like, I think 3 stages during gestation, if memory serves me correctly, that the body is transitioned to the masculine variant. You guys are all ripoffs. I'm the original.
Well, I also think that Forrest talked, I don't know, somewhere in one of his videos or somewhere on the line, he talked about how that is a misconception. The idea that we're all female at conception.
Well,
So if we don't get that hormonal influx, we don't.
you would still have XY
If the SRY
chromosomes, but your
gene-
body would be female.
So there are people that, and somebody tried to correct me on this, whether they're immune to the effects of testosterone or it's something to do with androgen. I can't remember what the specifics are, to be exact, but I mean there are some people who, when that influx happens, and it doesn't cause the change that it should, and so what you end up with is somebody who is genetically male, XY chromosome, should have developed into a male, and is technically, if you want to do it as some people do, they want to say, well, how do you tell whether it's a man or woman? XY chromosome. Well, that's not the first means anybody ever used, but okay, but if that's the criteria that you're going to use, that you're not going to identify anybody until you've seen their genome, okay, if that's the standard you're going to go by, then this woman who had 3 kids is a man.
Yeah, basically.
There's usually fertility issues, but yes.
Or-
They have absolutely had children, and and everything that comes with that. So I don't even.
Yeah, not my topic. I don't know anything about it. That's why I try to stay out of it.
Yeah,
Richard Dawkins talks about the tyranny of the incongruous mind, and I think it's pretty fucked that he fell to it. But
right, yeah, what a disappointment Dawkins is. But yeah, I would definitely take all these questions to people like Forrest and Erica.
T.Z. Myers. Yeah, I have no additional training in,
Before Tomer gets out his guitar again, let's get back to.
Well, yeah, who's reading this next one? Then?
Me? Oh, we're going in order of the screens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, also, Kip, do you have like a certain time you gotta head out by?
No, I just have to be done probably by 11:15, 11:30.
All right.
Sorry
Well,
about
let's have Kip read that.
Okay, sure. Okay, I'm reading from the 85 publication of the JPS. For the leader with instrumental music, a psalm of Asaph, a song. God has made himself known in Judah. His name is great in Israel. Solemn became his abode, Zion his den. There he broke the fiery arrows of the bow, the shield and the sword of war, Selah. You were resplendent, glorious on the mountains of prey. The stout-hearted were despoiled. They were in a stupor. The bravest of men could not lift a hand. At your blast, God of Jacob, horse and chariot lay stunned. Oh, you are awesome. Who can withstand you when they are enraged? In heaven you pronounced sentence. The earth was numbed with fright as God rose to execute judgment, to deliver all the lowly of the earth. Selah. The fiercest of men shall acknowledge you when you gird on the last bit of fury. Make vows and pay them to Yahweh your God. All who are around him shall bring tribute to the awesome one. He curbs the spirit of princes, inspires awe in the kings of the earth.
So the one thing that I noticed here that I wanted to talk about. So like, there's. Oh, sorry, hold on. I gotta grab this fucking cat. Okay, buddy, come here.
He's got to grab his fucking pussy.
Calm the fuck down. So the in verse 2, I guess we can look at verses 1 and 2. So this is a very common feature in Jewish poetry, where we or I guess I should say Hebrew poetry, that that there's a lot of parallelism, right? Where the first strophe is paralleled with the second, where they are saying the same thing twice, basically. But for this one, I'm not 100% certain if that's what we're having, or if we're having a more like inclusive kind of categorization here. So like, depending on when this is written, you have Judah and Israel. So two different regions, but at this time it could also be inclusive, where like Judah is considered to be simply a part of Israel. So in the same way, the parallelism with verse 2 would suggest that Salem would just be a part of Zion, or are they saying that in this case like Judah and Israel are equivalent, or and in that case it would be Salem and Zion are equivalent.
In the same way.
It should be noted that this psalm is considered traditionally as one of the songs of Zion, also including Psalms 46, 47, 84, 87, and 122.
And that's sort of where I was focused on this too, right? On Salem and Zion. And when you put this in the same sense of how the comparison contrast is being made between Judah and Israel, now I'm wondering what's going on here in this. I guess it's verse 2 for most people, right? It's verse 3 for me. Salem and Zion. Yeah. So And one of the things that I'm sort of struck by, and I've done a little bit of reading on this more recently, but like this is the traditional association is that Solemn is Jerusalem.
Yes.
But I don't know. Like it's not. That seems like it could be a very late attribution, and it's super rare too, right? Like
There's something
I
in the
think
Egyptian text about this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up. Hold on.
Okay, but like it occurs here, and then the only other place that Salem appears is in the story of Melchizedek in Genesis 14. And I know there's scholarly discussion about how problematic that text is in terms of the attribution. There's thoughts that this could be a scribal corruption of some sort. Is Salem there?
Cargill
Sodom?
says that it's
Like-
that it's Sodom, and his argument for it is kind of shit. So
Yeah.
I wasn't
so
initially against that identification, but then when he argued
don't
for it, I
think
was like, you know what?
so.
It's not that.
The way I'm thinking about that now is has to do with the fact that I don't necessarily think that Melchizedek is a name as much as it's a title. So I think it's ambiguous there too. But yeah, so I don't know. What is said about this, Tomer?
So Hosfeld and Zenger write that the Psalms use not of the usual word Jerusalem, but instead of the rare Salem, which apart from 76:3 appears only in Genesis 14:18, is intended to evoke, on the one hand, the mythical, quote-unquote, primeval time. On the other hand, Shalem is meant to echo the Shalom perspective that is the subject of the psalm. The weapons of war will be destroyed and the enemy's attack will be crippled in order that peace, Shalom, may break in. At the same time, Salem prepares for the last part of the psalm, which, in challenging the whole world to acknowledge Yahweh as God, uses the verb Shalem, PL, fulfill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So should I start a commentary or seen?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, Alira the Free just sent
Yeah.
another 50 R and Rob gift memberships.
Cool. So Psalm 76 is traditionally considered to be one of the songs of Zion, seen in Psalms 46, 47, 84, 87, and 1-2. Tate writes that these psalms are characterized by devotion to Zion as the center of Yahweh's presence with his people. Zenger writes that this primary psalm celebrates, in a typical Zion theology, the God who dwells on Zion, who there and from there disempowers the armies that, as agents of chaos, threaten the ordered life of the cosmos, and who thus intends to draw all the kings of the earth to acknowledge his worldwide kingship. Gerstenberger, however, notes that Zion remains a secondary theme, and nowhere in the psalm do we find a line addressed to the holy dwelling place or extolling the shrine or city all by themselves. Instead, he writes that the Zion tradition is subsumed to glorification of the supreme God of the Judean or Israelite community of faith, and he prefers classifying the psalm as a confessional hymn. The historical background behind this psalm is unclear. Goldingay notes that it has been connected historically with the time of David, according to Eispelt, as well as with the Assyrian crisis, according to Rashi, but it also looks behind these to the Red Sea event. Krauss writes that pre-Israelite traditions are involved which have been transferred to the chosen city of God, Zion, and now applied to the glorification of Yahweh and his dwelling place. He writes that the archaic sound of the psalm lets a pre-exilic dating seem possible. Tate writes that the psalm may have emerged in some original form from an actual historical event. but the psalm has the generalized imagery of cultic celebration, and all efforts to relate it closely to a specific historical context should be avoided. He writes that Movinkel's theory that Psalm 76 belongs to the context of the celebration of the kingship of Yahweh in the festivals of Zion is probable. Zenger writes that it is more probably the rescue of Jerusalem from the Assyrians in 701 that is in view, especially since that event achieved a multivalent interpretation in Israel's theology and had a broad historical influence, though he takes verses 9 and 10 to be a post-exilic expansion. That's it.
Got a bit of a show and tell happening.
Of course.
Show and tell what are you talking about?
Well, you were going to show us your arachnid.
Sorry, I was just looking this up.
Oh, you're muted.
Arachnids still give me the heebie-jeebies. Like, it's less, but I'm still not a fan of anything with way too many fucking legs. Why? Why? Why?
But scorpions have big ones. So, well, no, they're not really legs, are they?
I was just looking this up because this is there's a small little bit of Psalm 76 that's preserved in a Dead Sea Scrolls manuscript. That's 4Q Psalms E 4Q87, which is one of the more we have remains of that, which suggests that it's one of the more substantial manuscripts of the Psalms. And what we have evidence for is Psalm 76, 77, 78, 81, 86, 88, 89, 104, 105, 109, 116, 120, 125, 129, and 130. So, and it seems pretty big. It's like was probably 25 or 26 lines.
Yeah, I also wanted to show off.
Herodian.
I also wanted to show off these wicked gloves I got.
That's cool.
Nerds.
Well, it's pretty really good at giving like back scratches.
But they're no good for handling the scorpions. It makes it very difficult to do that. And his name is Leopold.
Also, Tomer, you have a math degree. Don't pretend you're not a nerd.
I'm not a nerd.
Why?
I'm
You're a
sophisticated. I am sophisticated.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Sorry. Okay.
So,
77. Yes.
Yes.
Isaac.
Oh, did we just get another 50 RNRA gift memberships?
No,
up to 200.
No, we did like.
No, you've read that one.
Okay, sorry.
All right, verse 77. This is about my ex, Yahweh. Anyway. For the leader on Yedushan of Asaph, a psalm, I cry aloud to God. I cry to God that he may give ear to me. In my time of distress, I turn to the Lord. With my hand, it flows all night without respite. I will not be comforted. I call God to mind. I moan. I complain. My spirit fails. Stella, you have held my eyelids open. I am overwrought. I cannot speak. My thoughts turn to days of old, to years long past. I recall at night their jibes at me. I commune with myself. My spirit inquires, will the Lord reject forever and never again show favor? Has his faithfulness disappeared forever? Will his promise be unfulfilled for all time? Has God forgotten how to pity? Has he in anger stifled his compassion? Selah. And I said, It is my fault that the right hand of the Most High hath changed. I recall the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I recall your wonders of old. I count all your works. I speak of your acts. O God, your ways are holiness. What God is as great as God? You are the God who works wonders. You have manifested your strength among the peoples. By your arm you redeemed your people, the children of Jacob and Joseph. Selah. The waters saw you, O God. The waters saw you and were convulsed. The very deep quaked as well. Clouds streamed water. The heavens rumbled. Your arrows flew about. Your thunder rumbled like wheels. Lightning lit up the world. The earth quaked and trembled. Your way was through the sea, your path through the mighty waters. Your tracks could not be seen. You led your people like a flock in the care of Moses and Aaron. Yeah, a bit weird at the end, but
yeah, I think the end part is definitely, or like the verse, verses 16 through 20 there. Like, obviously we're talking about the Exodus, calling back to the Song of the Sea. What is that? Exodus, what chapter again?
It's 14,
I mean, is it
15,
possible
14,
that it's older
15,
and it's
14
like
or 15?
chaos?
It's one of those.
Well, the thing is,
Is it
initially
Yeah.
you're like thinking, oh, this is like some chaos comp stuff, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the issue is that it's far more specific in that it's talking about leading the way through the people. But the thing is, the Song of the Sea is also
That's a
based on
chaos
a
comp.
chaos comp. So
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
yeah.
They could
So
have
even
been.
though this one is more directly referencing the Exodus narrative was already based on a chaos comp.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't like
It's
edited
so funny.
independently.
Well,
It's very theophonic in nature, though, because this is exactly what happens when a god shows up.
mhm.
It's so interesting to look at all the connections between older mythology and memes and ideas of the time. And I couldn't do that as a believer because I had to believe the book was magic and, given by God. And, there's nothing wrong with humans having cultural references in their works, but God is supposed to be, omni everything.
Yeah, I wonder if
Except in
like modern people coming up with something like this would describe the appearance of God differently than ancient people who didn't understand what thunder and lightning was.
I think there's a human element of awe and borderline reverence for some of the more powerful elements of nature. If you've stood by the sea when the lightning strikes, like, there's real power in that, and there's a sense of wonder. And
I feel like there'd be more like universe, space
oh
stuff. You don't get a lot of that in the Bible. You have like, can you?
Fair enough, but they had no
stars in the same place.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, how many times we tried to understand the universe and fucked it up because we were expecting it to be a clock, because God is so obviously so logical and orderly. That's what he would do. And every time we took the approach of looking for what we thought God would do, it never, ever turned out to be the case.
What I also found interesting about this was, and this is pretty uncommon, but it does happen from time to time. It talks about the house of Joseph.
Yeah.
And here we have a reference to the descendants of Jacob and Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually we don't see the descendants of Joseph or their house, but we see you with Jacob all the time.
Yep.
But here we have a specific reference in verse 15 to the descendants of Jacob and Joseph.
This has to be pretty late. I think.
Right, yeah. In order to have Joseph in there at all, I think the Joseph story is a far later addition.
Oh yeah, and I'm thinking about the mention
I mean, it is a bit debatable, I would say. I think that wait.
I mean, the mention of Moses and Aaron probably
Yeah,
sets it pretty late too.
I think who was that? Singer or Hosmer? I'm always confusing between.
Is Joseph Northern?
No, it's Hosmer.
Yeah.
Because you're getting
Yeah. So I know
the two
that the
tribes.
husband.
Yeah.
I mean, it rain. It's unclear. I mean, there are opinions from here to there.
Of course. Yeah.
But generally, I think it is exilic. But I mean, I'll just read the commentary. But so
it could have sourced from older fragments of hymns too. So, anything that had a good memory hook for the people for whatever reason could.
Yeah, but I wonder if it's like remembering a time when, Jacob was the ancestor of the Judahites and Joseph was the ancestor of the
northern
Manasseh, Ephraim, the
northern kingdom.
It is a strange way though because you do get that in the text, but most often it's like contrasting between like Jacob and Ephraim.
Yeah.
So like the fact that it's Joseph is interesting. It's unusual,
than Ephraim.
Yeah,
okay,
This is actually one of the things that I wanted to do some kind of project on, like the usage of the house of Joseph. So this is something I'm definitely gonna keep a note of.
Well, I mean, the Hebrew is, I guess, technically B'nai Yosef, like the sons of Yosef, the children of Joseph, rather than the house of. But yeah.
Well, no, I get that, but if I want to do a project on the house of Joseph, I would have to include this.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so
sorry. So sorry. There was one other thing I wanted to mention. Real quick in verse 9, has God forgotten to be gracious? Has he in anger shut up his compassion? The answer is yes. Anyways, go ahead, Tomer.
Can you forget what you never knew or shut up what you never possessed?
It's an interesting verse to end with Selah, I think. Because I feel like Selah almost means indeed, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think it's just kind of how it's kind of how songs today have just like a refrain of like, yeah, or something like that.
No, I think it generally, like, for me it seems to be like an indication of like a musical interlude. Selah.
How is that different from what I just said?
No, but he's saying like literally like the word chorus written in.
Oh,
are you saying that Selah is like when the songs used to say yeah, that kind of thing?
I mean, it is a musical instrumental, so no.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's what
but he's saying it could also be like the word that represents like this is the bit where you do an instrumental bridge or whatever it's called.
Yes. Okay, so early scholars have taken Psalm 77 to be a composition of two originally independent psalms, or parts of psalms. Tate notes that the psalm is usually divided into verses 2 through 10 and 11 through 12, or 2 through 11 and 12 through 21. Okay, Gunkel called verses 2 through 10 a lament by form and content, and described verses 11 through 21 as hymnic. Krauss found a prayer song of an individual person in verses 10 through 10, with verses 11 through 21 as a retrospection on the great deeds of Yahweh in the form of hymnic address, and with verses 17 through 20 being an independent description of a theophany. He notes, however, that Jake Selman has, quote, drawn together an impressive array of evidence pointing toward the rhetorical unity of the psalm and to the probability that it is the literary creation of a single poet, end quote. Hosfeld writes that the horizon of Psalm 77 and its repeated references to other texts allows us to conjecture a setting at some time during the exile. He writes that this is favored by the relationship to the Song of the Sea in Exodus 15, which probably served as a model. Added to this are the vaguer recollections of the Song of Moses in Deuteronomy 32. From the Sinai traditions, notable are the ties to Exodus 33, especially verses 18 through 23 there, and the confession in Exodus 34:6. He notes that exilic contemporaries that suggest themselves include Lamentations 3 and the exilic theology of Jeremiah and Deutero-Isaiah. Tate notes that while some commentators have argued that Psalm 77 is old, or at least some sections are old, based on a similar vocabulary found in older Psalms, like Psalms 18, 8 through 18, dated circa 9th through 8th century, and Ugaritic literature, the common vocabulary may be due in large measure to a common literary genre. He writes that Psalms 18, 6 through 18 is a description of a theophany, as is 77, 17 through 20, and it is not surprising that they share common language, because they are part of a common tradition. He writes that it is possible that the reference to the sons of Jacob and Joseph, in verse 15, which is 16, may point to an origin in the northern Israelite kingdom before 72 BCE. He writes, however, that the present psalm seems more at home in the time of the exile, after 587 BCE, and especially in the post-exilic period. He argues that the speaker is likely to speak for the perplexed and fearful Israelite communities in the great catastrophe of the exile and its aftermath. Likewise, Gerstenberger writes that pondering theologically the state of the community under the impression of God's disgrace is the motivation to sing a hymn of glorification and historical as well as mythical remembrance. Thus, he takes the psalm to be a meditative hymn testifying to the shaking of spiritual foundations in the exilic and post-exilic period. That's it.
Yeah.
Tomer,
Yes.
do you have this next one?
Yes.
You know what? I'm sorry and I'm not sorry. So have fun.
Jesus,
Thank
this
you.
is a huge.
It is 78, 70, 72 verses.
Yep, 72
Holy
verses.
cow!
Yes, it is the second largest psalm, with Psalms
I will
119 being the
yawn.
largest.
It's not you.
Should we break it up?
No.
No.
Raw dog it.
Well, okay.
Ah,
You see that?
Okay.
Tomer's lubricating for it.
yes, exactly. With vodka. So, a maskil of Asaph. Give ear, my people, to my teaching. Turn your ear to what I say. I will expound a theme. Hold forth on the lessons of the past. Things we have heard and known that our fathers have told us. We will not withhold them from their children, telling the coming generation the praises of the Lord and his might, and the wonders he performed. He established a decree in Jacob, ordained a teaching in Israel, charging our fathers to make them known to their children, that a future generation might know children yet to be born, and in turn tell their children, that they might put their confidence in God, and not forget God's great deeds, but observe his commandments, and not be like their fathers, a wayward and defiant generation, a generation whose heart was inconstant, whose spirit was not true to God. Like the Ephraimite bowmen who played false in the day of battle, they did not keep God's covenant, they refused to follow his instruction. They forgot his deeds and the wonders that he showed them. He performed marvels in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Egypt, the plain of Zion. He split the sea and took them through it. The plain of Zoan. He split the sea and took them through it. He made the waters stand like a wall. He led them with a cloud by day, and throughout the night by the light of fire. He split rocks in the wilderness, and gave them drink as if from the great deep. He brought forth streams from a rock, and made them flow down like a river. But they went on sinning against him, defying the Most High in the parched land. To test God was in their mind when they demanded food for themselves. They spoke against God, saying, "Can God spread a feast in the wilderness? True, he struck the rock and waters flowed, streams gushed forth. But can he provide bread? Can he supply his people with meat?" The Lord heard, and he raged. Fire broke out against Jacob. Anger flared up at Israel. Because they did not put their trust in God, did not rely on his deliverance. So he commanded the skies above, he opened the doors of heaven, and rained manna upon them for food, giving them heavenly grain. Each man ate a hero's meal, he sent them provision in plenty. He set the east wind moving in heaven, and drove the south wind by his might. He rained meat on them like dust, winged birds like the sands of the sea, making them come down into his camp around his dwelling place. They ate till they were sated. He gave them what they craved. They had not yet wearied of what they craved. The food was still in their mouths. When God's anger flared up at them, he slew their sturdiest, struck down the youth of Israel. Nonetheless, they went on sinning and had no faith in his wonders. He made their days end in futility, their years in sudden death. When he struck them, they turned to him and sought God once again. They remembered that God was their rock, God most high, their redeemer. Yet they deceived him with their speech, lied to him with their words. Their hearts were inconstant towards him. They were untrue to his covenant. But he, being merciful, forgave iniquity and would not destroy. He restrained his wrath time and again, and did not give full vent to his fury. For he remembered that they were but flesh, a passing breath that does not return. How often did they defy him in the wilderness? Did they grieve him in the wasteland? Again and again they tested God, vexed the Holy One of Israel. They did not remember his strength, or the day he redeemed them from the foe. How he displayed his signs in Egypt, his wonders in the plain of Zoan. He turned their rivers into blood, he made their waters undrinkable. He inflicted upon them swarms of insects to devour them, frogs to destroy them. He gave their crops over to grubs, their produce to locusts. He killed their vines with hail, their sycamores with frost. He gave their beasts over to hail, their cattle to lightning bolt. He inflicted his burning anger upon them, wrath, indignation, trouble, a band of deadly messengers. He cleared a path for his anger. He did not stop short of slaying them, but gave them over to pestilence. He struck every firstborn in Egypt, the first fruits of their vigor in the tents of Ham. He set his people moving like sheep, drove them like a flock in the wilderness. He led them in safety. They were unafraid. As for their enemies, the sea covered them. He brought them to his holy realm, the mountain his right hand had acquired. He expelled nations before them, settled the tribes of Israel in their tents, allotting them their portion by the line. Yet they defiantly tested God Most High and did not observe his decrees. They fell away disloyal like their fathers. They played false like a treacherous bow. They vexed him with their high places. They incensed him with their idols. God heard it and was enraged. He utterly rejected Israel. He forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent he had set among men. He let his might go into captivity, his glory into the hands of the foe. He gave his people over to the sword. He was enraged at his very own. Fire consumed their young men, and their maidens remained unwed. Their priests fell by the sword, and their widows could not weep. The Lord awoke us from sleep like a warrior shaking off wine. He beat back his foes, dealing them lasting disgrace. He rejected the clan of Joseph. He did not choose the tribe of Ephraim. He did choose the tribe of Judah, Mount Zion, which he loved. He built his sanctuary like the heavens, like the earth that he established forever. He chose David, his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds. He brought him from minding the nursing ewes to tend his people, Jacob, Israel, his very own. He tended them with blameless heart. With skillful hands, he led them.
Yeah, lots of stuff in that one, huh?
Is that what we're calling it?
Calling what?
Jesus fuck. Oh, he led them with skillful hands. The fuck? Abby, I know we have all been told by some pretentious cocksucker who wants to act superior that God loves us so much. And I just have to say, may such love never find me. May it stay far from me. May it be struck by disaster if it comes within 1,000 yards. Jesus fuck.
So is this
Alright,
like it's almost like a synopsis of the
It's a
Israel
pretty
history.
comprehensive rehearsal of the Torah.
Right.
The narration of the Torah, right? Like, which is really interesting.
Deuteronomic history or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
No, not quite.
No.
But I mean, up through David at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few things, right? So the
Just a few.
there's some stuff that I just noted for like myself, like when he's leading them through the desert in a cloud. But then there is, and so in verses 19 through 20, they spoke against God, saying, "Can God spread a table in the wilderness? Even though he struck the rocks so that the water gushed out and the torrents overflowed, can he also give bread or provide meat for his people?" So it's obviously setting up for the manna from heaven thing, but it's very
how
interesting.
dare they ask for food?
Right, yeah, but it is.
They were tempting him.
Right, it's their fault. So the interesting thing for me is that this is very like throughout the Psalms, right? Like this is kind of the this is, I guess, would be a stand-in for the wicked, because they also ask like, oh, can God like see us doing this? Like, what's your God gonna do? Like that he's powerless, essentially. So it's kind of a stand-in. So like the people who were back then, who would have been questioning God, the modern day psalmist could be, well, not modern day, but you know what I mean. The psalmists of the time this was written would have maybe been thinking of the wicked, but because of they were asking for food, it says verses 23 through 24, I guess 25 too, that he opened the doors of heaven. So that would be like, like, because they actually did believe that there were like windows and doors in the firmament.
Not quite the same word though, but yeah, it's
right. No, I know, but it's the same idea. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no. I get it.
So that's where this manna would have come from. But it's specifically
So is there a door in the firmament that leads to heaven?
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we lock that bitch out?
Right?
It's in later traditions, like in later apocalypses, the Apocalypse of Paul, for example. You kind of get that. So it is later. But just as there were windows in heaven, there were doors too. So the and it says
so that
here,
makes me sorry. I just I know. I just because I have to. This makes me think that there's and is this kind of what you're getting at, Lawrence? That because when you see the way the story is told in the stories of the Great Flood, they're like sluice gates, right? Like they seem specifically intended to hold back water and to release water, as opposed to this, which is something different.
Right. Well, in this case, it's releasing food, but it is interesting though that so I know that in Jubilees, for example, it says that manna is like the food of angels, and this would be specific reference to that. Mortals ate of the bread of angels. So, and that would be referencing the manna that they just got. And I also kind of going to my idea of these people as being like the ones who are testing God to be like a stand-in for the wicked. You kind of see that in verse 36. They flattered him with their mouths. They lied to him with their tongues. That is very Reshaim-esque as to how they that's exactly how they talk about them in Psalms. is that they flatter with their tongues. But I also like the inclusion of, I'm going to guess, because I didn't actually look at the Hebrew for this, but I'm going to guess this is El Elyon in
Where?
35 and 35.
35.
The Most High
yes,
God.
it is.
Yes,
El
Elyon.
Elyon.
Yeah. Which we can talk ad nauseum about. Then in, what else did I note here? Verse 54, he brought them to his holy hill, to the mountain that his right hand had won. So this one's layered, because like you could say that he won the mountain by himself, which means he didn't have it before. But you could say that if his right hand won it, that would be like his second in command, his chosen one, right? Getting it. So this is because the right hand of God is always
won it in battle, launched a successful campaign, kind of a vibe.
Except that, like, the Hebrew here is kana, though, right? Like, it's and this is the same. We saw this in the last one too. So this is like this mountain that he acquired with his right hand, which is, I don't know, that's like that is not.
Lawrence, do you read Hebrew yet?
No.
I mean, I suspect you will eventually, but
no, he won't.
Never.
The dude already does Russian and ancient Greek, and
he needs to also learn Coptic.
Well, Coptic's in there, sure, but that's like lower on the list. I gotta learn, like, there's
that's very similar to Greek,
Hebrew, but also Aramaic,
Coptic,
and it's an Egyptianized form of Greek. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the
are you doing Aramaic separate from Hebrew?
It has to be separate. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
I have no idea how close they are. I mean, I would have thought that was the Hebrew like Portuguese is to Spanish.
It's so the way it's taught usually is you learn Hebrew first, and then it's easier to teach Aramaic because because there is a lot of, I mean, lots of the roots are the same, but there's also there's definitely syntactical, grammatical differences, but conceptually speaking, it's it's like a Northwest Semitic language, so it's it's just once you've got the concepts of the way the language works through Hebrew, it's easier to learn.
And also, like, a lot of sources will write Aramaic using like more modern Hebrew script. So you can, if you learn how to read Hebrew, then you can read Aramaic in a lot of places.
They did that in the past too, because of the different readings in the Gospels of why, my God, why have you forsaken me? So like Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani.
Yeah.
And there are different readings of that based on if they're using the Hebrew version or the Aramaic version. So what else we got here?
We got 400. We're up to $400 from Illyra the Free, sending another 50 R and Raw gift memberships.
Damn.
And Shut Up Matt says, Lawrence, these sluice gates, letting the waters in, is like the gates you open to irrigate your fields, as seen in cities next to flooding river plains.
Arn, you should have started reading at the one from My Unfinished Journey. You missed quite a lot.
Did I missed? Okay. Start reading from My Unfinished Journey. All right. Hail, Aaron and panel, and hail overcoming fundy-based fears.
Woo!
I saw the post for this where they included like a picture of a snake and a spider and a scorpion. And then let's see, Allure the Free, of course. And then Bree says, Bree _ Hive says, I love the Aaron. I love the horns. Thank you. And then wait. And then My Unfinished Sock says, don't make a musical bridge, or do. I'm not the boss of you. Either way, like and share the stream.
Agreed.
Okay. And I'm caught up now, I think.
Yep.
Okay, in that case, I'll continue on here. Yeah, verse 58. This one's kind of neat. So for they provoked him to anger with their high places, they moved him to jealousy with their idols. I mean, to me, this speaks for a later date, because we have the hatred of idols and the hatred of high places. So while there were some groups, there was at least one group that would have taken issue with those things around the time of the Assyrian invasion. It obviously became a more popular idea later on during the Josianic period and afterwards. So because God would have been, and we have archaeological evidence that he would have been fine with high places and and idols. So it's not exact. So this definitely speaks to like, I can't know for sure, but it definitely speaks to, at the very least, the time after the Assyrian invasion, which is when like some of the early prophets would have started hating on high places and idols.
Has God ever tried not being a little bitch about anything existing that isn't about him?
No. Although I think my last note for this, because it was just so funny to me, in verse 65, then the Lord awoke as from sleep like a warrior shouting because of wine.
Yeah.
So he was acting like a drunken maniac.
Right. So he's not just an asshole, he's a drunk asshole.
Yeah, I did
That
find
tracks.
that fun.
That is super fun.
So I just noticed this now, but like when you spoke about verse 58, I should note that Hosford and Zenker, they write that verse 58, in typical Deuteronomistic formulas, names the principal crime of the Northern Kingdom, worshipping on the heights and serving idols. So that was one thing. Generally, verses 58 to 60 are very like Deuteronomistic in their outlook, and they note on 65. Yeah, so the 7th strophe begins with a trumpet blast, isn't it? Yes, it begins with a trumpet blast. First, verse 65 introduces a divine title new to Psalm 78, Adonai, Lord of all, a signal of the weightiness of the actions of God that follow. Then two unusual images are applied to God, the sleeping God and the drunken warrior. And they quote from Spiegelman, quote, "This makes the marginal theological statement sustainable, if at all, only in an image, that the application of God's wrath to his whole people is understandable only as a deed done in a destructive rage, in a condition of reduced culpability. The accusation against God, familiar in the exilic period, and the deep revulsion against this deed echo here in a very restrained fashion." End quote. And they also note that Elijah's ridicule of the sleeping Baal in 1 Kings 18:27, and the anxious cry to the sleeping God to awake in Psalm 7:7, 35:23, 44:24, and 59:5 have, in the fall of the Northern Kingdom, become a bitter reality by God's own act. This intensifies in the following verses: the weight of God's deeds after he has awakened, deeds done in full awareness.
Right. So abuse, reverse victim and offender, blame the other for that which you're culpable. Anyone else doing narcissist bingo? Because I'm pretty sure this episode is a blackout. Like, fuck.
I do like Targum here, which reads, "As a mighty one who becomes sober after wine."
Right. Well, okay. I know he beat you and killed your children and starved you and blamed for it, but he was drunk and he didn't mean it. Can't you be the bigger person? No, bitch. No, I will not.
Outstanding. So yes, another 50 RNRA gift memberships, taking us to 450. Thank you very much, Alira.
Okay, so I didn't write the extensive commentary on 78 because, yeah. So I saved it for 80 because I think that Psalms 80 is very interesting. So the dating of the psalm has been hotly debated by scholars and has been dated from the Davidic period in the early 10th century to the Maccabean era in the early 2nd century BCE. Take note that proponents of a 10th century dating include Campbell, Dahoud, Jacquet, and with Johnson suggesting that the psalm was written during Solomon's reign. Other scholars suggest a pre-exilic date for the psalm, but place it after the fall of the northern kingdom and before the exile of Judah, including Saborin, who suggested that the psalm ends with David for theological reasons, and not because the author had reached a contemporary period. Haglund suggested that the psalm comes from shortly after the northern kingdom fell, since its use of the desert traditions indicates that they had not yet coalesced into their present form. He argues that the psalm's purpose was to explain why the northern kingdom came to an end. Still, others suggest a post-exilic dating, including Gunkel, who argued that the picture of the northern tribes as completely faithless may indicate the anti-Samaritanism of early Judaism. Krauss thought it conceivable that the psalm belongs to Deuteronomistic circles, and the chronicler's history, with a renewed emphasis on the election of Zion and David against northern Israelite claims. Gerstenberger suggested that the psalm was handed down in worship situations in the ancient Jewish community. Later on, different groups took over such texts, modified them over the years, and used them in their own meeting places. He argues that a community leader was probably responsible for the text, which grew and got reshaped thoroughly as time passed. Tellien writes that Psalm 78 preceded the destruction of the temple, 587 BCE, and even the agony of the Davidic dynasty. He notes that the weeks and months that followed the reform of Josiah in 622 BCE witnessed a purification of worship not only in Jerusalem, but also in the Holy Land at large. He argues that even if the reports were exaggerated by legendary enthusiasm in 2 Kings 22:11 through 23:27, the Canaanite practices of several generations still colored the religion of the people. Quote, they did not have trust in his covenant, end quote, in verses 36 and 37. Compare Jeremiah 31 through 34. And Hosfeld comments, quote, Psalm 78 is a weighty individual conception of Israel's history. It is true that the Deuteronomistic language and the influence of Deuteronomistic theologumena, periodization of history, Sinai covenant, obedience to the law as criterion for judgment, condemnation of the sins of the northern kingdom, are undeniable. But they are confronted also by the specifically Assaphite interpretation of history. The salvation history intended by God for Israel is, from the people's side of things, an admonitory history of sin from the very beginning. Israel's constant sin is expressed in unbelief and doubt of God's qualification for leadership. It is in this self-contradictory fashion that Israel responds to God's wonders, in verses 17 through 22 and 32. The sin is continued in breach of the covenant and offenses against the first and second commandments, called of the high places and services to idols. Compare verses 36 and 37 and 56 through 58.
So this is an Assaphite history. There's a new concept.
I would like to say that I doubt God's capacity for leadership.
I think one of the requirements of a leader is it should be that you ought to be there.
Did anybody talk about the usage of Torah in throughout the psalm?
Throughout? I mean, I see only in verse 5.
Isn't it used twice? I thought I saw. Yeah, there's in verse 5, and then there's. I thought I saw it somewhere else. Oh yeah, right at the very beginning. I mean, it's the verbal.
Verse 10. I mean,
verse 1.
also.
Verse. Oh, Are we in 78? We are in 78.
We're
right?
in 78. So there is like
yeah.
There is Torati in verse 1 and there is in verse 10 Torato.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I guess I should. Yeah, so I brought this up. I bring this up because as a term of designation for a body of literature. I mean, there's all sorts of ongoing discussion about what that was or what that looked like, and at what point the Jewish people started to collect the writings of Moses together as a body of literature, as a Torah. Which seems like it could be quite late, actually.
Okay. We don't. It needs to read 79, I think.
Oh no.
He has disappeared.
No, there is.
No, I have not.
Wait,
continue.
did Isaac read?
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. My eyes are just... Ugh.
Okay, so are we on 78?
We have... I think we finished
We just done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we changed the order a bit. So that,
Okay, I was a little confused when Tomir said that he hadn't read, or he didn't write commentary for 78.
No, I did. I
Okay.
mean, extensive commentary. That's
Okay.
yeah, it's way too long for that.
Yes.
All right, so we're on 79 then. All right,
Yes.
so plea for mercy for Jerusalem. A psalm of Asaph. Oh God, the nations have come into your inheritance. They have defiled your holy temple. They have laid Jerusalem in ruins. They have given the bodies of your servants to the birds of the air for food, the flesh of your faithful to the wild animals of the earth. They have poured out their blood like water all around Jerusalem, and there was no one to bury them. We have become a taunt to our neighbors, mocked and derided by those around us. How long, O Lord, will you be angry forever? Kind of answering your own question there. Will your jealous wrath burn like fire? Pour out your anger on the nations that do not know you, and on the kingdoms that do not call on your name. For they have devoured Jacob and laid waste to his habitation. Do not remember against us the iniquities of our ancestors. Let your compassion come speedily to meet us, for we are brought very low. Help us, O God of our salvation. For the glory of your name, deliver us and forgive our sins, for your name's sake. Why should the nations say, where is their God? Let the avenging of the outpoured blood of your servants be known among the nations before our eyes. Let the groans of the prisoners come before you. According to your great power, preserve those doomed to die. Return sevenfold to the bosom of your neighbors the taunts with which they taunted you, O Lord. Then we, your people, the flock of your pasture, will give thanks to you forever. From generation to generation, we will recount your praise. Before anybody else jumps in, I mean, all I ever read out of any of these is that we're talking about an imaginary friend who is only provincial. He only applies to this one little tribe. And he doesn't care about the whole planet. He doesn't care about humanity as a whole. He's not timeless. He's not spaceless. This is just their little God in their little place at their little time. And all he wants to do is divide everybody and then fuck off when he's needed. And all he cares about is that everybody kills everybody else. That's it.
And apparently the only way to get him to take responsibility for his people that he loves and has committed himself to is to appeal to his ego and point out that everyone knows he's in cahoots with them. So it's going to look really bad for him if he kills them all.
Yeah. And as Peter pointed out, Alira the Free sent another 50 RNR gift memberships, so that we are up to 500.
Jeez. Wow.
Alira is my hero.
All right, thank you very much, Alira. Now, we're moving on to the next chapter.
I have commentary though,
I-
unless Lauren
I
wants
guess
to
I-
say something.
Yeah, I guess I do have a couple of notes here. So in verse 10, why should the nations say, "Where is their God?" Obviously, this goes back to the idea that, like, if you beat someone in a war, your God is better than their God. Very, very common thing. And I do have a question here for also on that same verse. Like, let the avenging of the outpoured blood of your servants be known among the nations before your eyes. Does this have any link to the avenger of blood?
Similar
I mean,
language, no?
because
Nikmas dam.
no, because it's the Avenger of Blood is Goel dam. Here is
Oh yeah, like
Nikmat
Redeemer
dam.
of Blood. This is actually like Revenger. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. Okay. And then in verse 12, this is something that we've seen a couple times now, and we will continue to see it. Return sevenfold into the bosom of our neighbors. So the sevenfold retribution thing goes all the way back to one of the very first stories in the Bible, where if anyone harmed Cain, yeah, they're
Same with Lamech.
What?
Same with Lamech.
Right. Yeah. Their action will come back to them sevenfold in completeness. That's what that means.
Yeah.
That's
Interesting your use about the very oldest stories in the Bible. Is Cain one of the very oldest stories in the Bible?
No. I didn't say oldest. I said first.
Well,
as in order.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the
Hold
order
on, though.
public.
Hold on.
Gotcha.
I mean, there is a there and I mean the formation of the Pentateuch is incredibly complex and complicated. But David Carr for one has written a fair bit about the like there was a Kenite story, a Kenite genealogy that is very old. That probably is behind this story in Genesis. Sorry, yeah, it is Genesis chapter 4. So.
That is interesting. Oh, also, I don't know if you guys knew this. I know, well, maybe Aaron noticed this when going over the Quran. There are multiple stories about Cain or I think there's one story about Cain in the Quran that we have no idea where the hell it came from. I forget how the story actually goes, but I remember reading it and going, where the hell is this from? What's the source material for this? And I don't think scholars even know where it came from. They haven't found like any text that is similar to it.
Have you asked inspiring philosophy? He knows
Have you asked a Talmud scholar
about the Quran?
I don't remember the reference he's talking about.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I'd have to go back and check it. But yeah, they're because like the stuff we were reading, even the critical stuff that actually like looked at the intertext was completely unsure as to where the hell it came from. So I'd have to go back and check. But it's very interesting.
Which story?
I can't remember. I just know it was about Cain, and it was early. It's earlier in the Quran.
Okay.
But I just remember it not. It's not the story from Genesis.
And
I
think the reference is in Quran 5:27 through 31.
That sounds like it might be it. Yeah. Yeah. But
what does it say?
Well,
Do we really need to go
read
through
it? We're not going to read it over the whole thing here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Look, it's not hard to understand. Supernatural was not the first fictional storytelling to figure out that the Mark of Cain is a pretty cool plot point, and you can do some shit with that.
That is true. It is pretty cool.
Because I find it interesting how like sometimes the Quran has stories that are like from Jewish like midrashim, like for example, the story
exactly.
of
That's
Joseph.
the thing. The Quran usually we usually know the source material for something behind the Quran, but then this one story about Cain, we just don't.
Okay, I mean, Arabs can also make up their own stories.
That too.
Well, the Quran is a mix of their own traditional old. They have their own pagan
stuff,
predecessors, and those stories somehow made it in too.
How did we get to the Quran?
It's carefully. This isn't Blasphemers.
Cain isn't even mentioned here.
In the Quran story
is mentioned
in the Psalms.
In the right,
sevenfold is mentioned.
Yeah, but like
that's it.
Very, very indirectly. Okay, so Psalm 79 is taken as communal lament according to Tate, a community cry for help according to Tanner, and a communal complaint according to Gerstenberger. Gerstenberger writes that while it would be interesting to know exactly when the psalm was composed and used, dating the text is not all that important. He writes that it has presumably been in liturgical use for a long time, subsuming more than one historical incident of defeat and desacralization. The earliest recorded reference could be to the fall of Jerusalem in 587 BCE. The latest would be 1 Maccabees 1:16-40, 2:7-13, 7:17, 2 Maccabees 8:2-4, etc. He writes that the social situation visible between the lines of the psalm itself leads to the conclusion that the text is younger than the first half of the 6th century BCE. Tate favors the time after the fall of Jerusalem in 587 to be the best for the original setting of the psalm. He notes that the psalm seems to presuppose the same situation as that in Isaiah 63:7-64:11, which H.G.M. Williamson has argued is an exilic penitential liturgy, probably recited at the ruined site of the temple in Jerusalem before 515 BCE. Tate writes that while there is no significant lexical parallels between Psalm 79 and the Isaiah passage, the situational relationship is strong enough to support their belonging to the same context. He argued that Psalm 79 belongs to a sizable corpus of the Old Testament literature, including Psalm 74, which emerged from the community which remained in Palestine during the exile, and was used in penitential liturgies during the period. He notes that penitential liturgies were used throughout the post-exilic era, and Psalm 79 continues to be used with the Jewish observance of the 9th of Ab, which commemorates the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem. Zenger favors dating the psalm to the early post-exilic period, or even later, 5th to 4th century BCE, since it has an unusual fullness of language and motifs common with other texts, and thus must be seen as the product of scribal sophistication, quote-unquote. He writes that the psalm is in an intertextual conversation with the books of Jeremiah, Joel, and the other Asaph psalms, especially Psalm 74 and 78. He suggested that Psalm 79 was deliberately composed for the literary context of the Asaph collection in which it now stands, as an interpretation, quote-unquote, of Psalm 74 in view of the perspective of the nations that marks the second part of the Asaph composition. That's it.
All right. Interesting perspective.
Okay, then. We're moving on to 80.
Yeah, I suppose we can do that.
Yes, and this is the chapter that I have the extensive commentary on.
Man, I know that we're not gonna get to it this time, but next week I'm excited for Psalm 82. Kip, are you gonna be here for Psalm 82?
Yeah, I should probably be here for Psalm 82.
I should say that I have a thing to attend to on Saturday. So.
Oh.
What, this Saturday?
No,
like next Saturday.
This Saturday is now.
Yeah.
You know what? Growing up Jewish made me very bad at understanding the concept of this week and next week. For me, the weeks, like growing up, the week starts on Sunday is the first day of the week. So if it's Sunday and someone says to me next Monday, I think a week away, not tomorrow.
Okay, so
it seems, yeah.
A couple questions then. Are we doing 81 today or do we want to push that off to next time?
I think we'll just do 80 today.
Okay.
And then 81 next.
So just 80, and then we're not going to meet on Saturday, which means we might lose Kip.
Yeah,
right?
most likely.
And Arn might get a few new snakes.
Maybe. I mean, I guess it depends on Wednesday. This Wednesday.
Does it have to be Wednesday?
I feel like I have to do something. This
Wednesday might be a bit touchy for me too.
Okay.
I have another.
I'm afraid, guys. I'm feeling a little loopy. I'm gonna go lay down. I think I ate something, but I'll be okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Please ask extra for me. Thanks.
I'm gonna have to bounce momentarily here too, but I'm just looking.
All right, Kip. When do you know offhand when we might be able to
have me back for Psalm 82? If it's like next week, I really should write more things down. I think I'm committed on Tuesday.
All right, well, let's get together in email then.
Yeah.
It's just easier to do it. I know it's not good for a show, but I mean it is easier to coordinate when we're all here and you're about to bounce. So.
Yeah. So and I might, I think I'll probably just hop off here. But send out an email. I'll try to get my schedule sorted today and see when I can come back.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Thank you very much.
You bet. Later.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, while we figure all that out, I will hop into Psalm 80 then.
Thank you.
To the leader, on lilies, a covenant of Asaph, a psalm. Give ear, O shepherd of Israel, you who led Joseph like a flock, you who are enthroned upon the cherubim. Shine forth before Ephraim and Benjamin and Manasseh. Stir up your might and come to save us. Restore us, O God. Let your face shine that we may be saved. O Lord God of hosts, how long will you be angry with your people's prayers? You have fed them with the bread of tears and given them tears to drink in full measure. You make us the scorn of our neighbors, our enemies laugh among us. Restore us, O God of hosts. Let your face shine that we may be saved. You brought a vine out of Egypt. You drove out the nations and planted it. You cleared the ground for it. It took deep root and filled the land. The mountains were covered with its shade, the mighty cedars with its branches. It sent out its branches to the sea and its shoots to the river. Why then have you broken down its walls, so that all who pass along the way pluck its fruit? The boar from the forest ravages it, and all that move in the field feed on it. Turn again, O God of hosts, look down from heaven and see. Have regard for this vine, the stock that your right hand planted. It has been burned with fire. It has been cut down. May they perish at the rebuke of your countenance. But let your hand be upon the one at your right hand, the one whom you made strong for yourself. Then we will never turn back from you. Give us life, and we will call on your name. Restore us, O Lord God of hosts. Let your face shine that we may be saved. So this is a very common metaphor for Israel, this vine that has been planted and has spread throughout. But obviously they are upset that God seems to have, well, I mean, let's be fair here. God is the one who destroyed them. It's all by his will that these things are happening. Of course, it makes it seem pretty passive because he's like, why do you let them do this? But in other texts, especially in the prophets, we'll see that this was like that them like plucking their fruit or whatever, which is which would be a metaphor for I don't know, attacking them, taking their shit, whatever it may be, the harming them in some way, is directly because God instructed it. And the title that's used here, God of hosts, Yahweh of armies, like this is specifically invoking the warlike aspect of the deity. And again, a couple things here in verse 1. Again, we have a reference to Joseph, because usually it would be leading Israel like a flock, or leading Jacob like a flock, but this one says Joseph, which is interesting. It does also say Israel, so it's clear like we're talking about the same line, but it is interesting the use of Joseph here as well. You who are enthroned upon the cherubim, obviously reference to his to the Ark of the Covenant, to his statue where he's sitting on a throne, and we've talked about that before.
Okay, so Alira the Free sent another 50 RN Raw gift memberships, taking us up to 550. Thank you very much for that. I am curious how much that she said it doesn't cost her in Turkey what it would if I were to send 50 gift memberships, but at this point I got to wonder, however cheap it is, this is still an investment. So thank you very much for that. All right.
Yes. So, commentators universally agree that Psalms 80 is a communal lament. Gerstenberger notes that Psalms 80 is not a song on occasion of military defeat, protracted drought, or any instantaneous threat to the community, but rather it faces ongoing oppression threat to the community. But rather it faces ongoing oppression and silent destruction of the community itself. He notes that people are chronically downcast in verse 6 and suffer constant aggression by hostile elements in verses 13 and 14. Thus, their hope is, in the last instance, with a royal and messianic leader who will bring about a turn of their dynasty. Zenger notes that among scholars there's a broad spectrum of suggested dates for the psalm, extending from the time of Saul and David, according to H. Heinemann, to the Maccabean period. He writes, however, that the most persuasive observations follow Eisfeld. The dog, Aaron.
Oh, sorry about that. Fucking dog.
He writes, however, that the most persuasive observations following Eisfeld are those that explain the primary form of the psalm as a reduction to the fall of the northern kingdom of Israel, brought about by the military actions of the Assyrian Empire. This first version of the psalm was then received in the Jerusalem cult and actualized for the Jerusalem temple liturgy, probably during the time of Josiah, second half of the 7th century. Zenger argues that Josiah wished to return parts of the former northern kingdom to his own sovereignty, and thus to restore, quote-unquote, Israel, but also gave the Jerusalem temple a special significance as the center of Yahweh religion. Goldingay writes that the psalm has more often been linked with the last decade of Ephraim's life, between 732 and 722. He notes that the psalm's parallels with Psalm 79 might make us think rather of the life of Ephraim somewhat later, when surviving Ephraimites longed for the restoration of their clans, and Josiah attempted to reassert Davidic authority there. He adds that one might think of such people praying in this way during the exile, or after the exile, when Samaria controlled Ephraim's territory and or in the 2nd century. Tate, however, notes that when considering the nature of the psalm formation, with the extensive use of traditional language, stock metaphors, and whole poetic sections, there is no reason to exclude the possibility that a skilled Asaphite scribe composed the psalm in the post-exilic era, or, more probably, reworked an older psalm into the present psalm. He writes that the scribe or writer may have intentionally applied kingship language to the vine, which is Israel, in order to reinterpret such language for Israelites when the Davidic monarchy no longer existed. He concludes that while the date and provenance of the psalm remain open questions, he writes that it probably stemmed from the post-exilic scribal interpretation and that it was used as a prayer of lament during this period. So Okay, so I'll start with the extensive commentary. We'll start with one, which is 2. Zenger comments about the shepherd of Israel. First, Zenger comments, quote, "The first appeal to God, shepherd of Israel, takes up a tradition broadly attested in the ancient Near East, according to which shepherd is a particularly appropriate title for deities and kings. However, it is probable that this broad ancient Near Eastern tradition was the very reason why the predicate shepherd was so reluctantly applied to God in the Old Testament. There are only 4 examples, Genesis 48:15, 49:24, Psalms 23:1, and our passage, in which Yahweh is called shepherd. The phrase used in verse 2, shepherd of Israel, is unique. Of course, the activities of Yahweh that are associated with the idea of a shepherd are more widely attested than the title itself. The predicate shepherd of Israel that opens the psalm stakes out the thematic and emotional horizons of the relationship that will be appealed to in the psalm. It is a matter, on the one hand, of the shepherd's professional quote-unquote duties, namely leading, feeding, shelter, and protection, and on the other hand of the specific characteristics or marks of the good shepherd, who engages on behalf of his flock and shares his life completely with that of his animals, so that the fate of his flock touches him in his innermost self." On "You Who Led Joseph Like a Flock," Tate notes that modern scholars have adopted approaches similar to that of the Septuagint. He notes that Gunkel judged that the reference to the Joseph tribes and Benjamin indicates that the content originated in the north, with a terminus terminus aquo of 722 BCE. According to Gunkel, the present psalm is later, but it derived its content from the former northern tribes. He writes that Gunkel's judgment of the northern derivation of the content has received rather widespread approach, including Weiser, Dahoud, and Terrien. On "You,"
and anything about why Joseph is used here as like a stand-in for Israel as a whole?
I think because Joseph is like northern, right? So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so
yeah, but I'm saying like, I mean, traditional explanation like Rashi's like, oh, because in Egypt, Joseph was the one who kept them all alive with food and stuff, so he somehow is like represents them, but that's like a stretch, I think.
Let's see.
Yeah, all Israel are called by the name Joseph because he sustained and supported them in time of famine. But
I mean, Zenger and Hosfeld write that the object Joseph alludes to the Exodus and to the occupation of the land by the tribes of Central Palestine. And the Ephraim and Manasseh are the names of Joseph's two sons, or the 2 tribes named for them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, I could see that. It's like an indication of like central. I don't really know.
Okay.
Okay, so "You who sit enthroned between the cherubim." Tate notes that this descriptive title seems to be well established in the Ephraimite tradition, probably originating from the worship center at Shiloh in the pre-monarchical period, but which was transferred to Jerusalem and was at home there, as seen in 1 Samuel 4:4, 2 Samuel 6:2, 2 Kings 19:15. Krauss writes that the conception of the god enthroned on cherubim is originally Canaanite, and it applies to the Lord of Heaven enthroned above the clouds. As the Baal of Heaven radiated forth, quote-unquote, as the god of the thunderstorm, so Yahweh is now to appear as the one enthroned on cherubim. Zenger writes that the psalm suggests the suspicion that the originally Canaanite notion was associated also in the northern kingdom with the warlike god-king, and was applied thereto to Yahweh, especially in the context of the Exodus and the occupation of the land. On 3, which is 4, Tate comments, quote, "The refrain both concludes and summarizes the plea, which is reiterated at verse 8 and verse 20. Restore us is a hefil imperative, hashivenu, from the root shov, turn, and could be translated, O God, cause us to turn, or O God, turn us. A broken relationship exists, and only a new covenant, or at the very least the renewal of the previous covenant, can restore Israel, according to Anderson. It is possible that the speaker is also begging God to, quote, help the exiled tribes to repent as the essential preliminary to their restoration, end quote, according to Cohen. Restoration is not just a readjustment of the material situation in Israel. The content of the psalm makes it clear that physical well-being is of major concern. Restore applies simultaneously to external welfare and what takes place in the human soul, according to Weiser. This is a cry for recreation in a comprehensive sense. Causing the face to shine, in verse 4b, is a sign of favor and goodwill. Compare number 625.
Now, you said this was according to Anderson, and that sounds like a Christian name. So, is this why he's calling for a second covenant?
No, I don't think it is, because like we see like a new covenant also in the Old Testament, right?
Okay.
So I don't. It's not essentially like Christian. At least I don't think Anderson is like a evangelical scholar.
Yeah, I mean, it's it doesn't necessarily mean a new like what's the word, Bible New Testament, but like in the Bible there are multiple a bris is like the word that they use for or brit, like a covenant. For example, there's the one where is it Abraham walks between the pieces of the animals. That's one of the covenants. And then you could say that like Mount Sinai is another one. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like the Noah's thing is a covenant too. So there are different covenants throughout the Bible. God makes a lot of deals with a lot of people. So yeah, happens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's another name for the book is The Art of the Deal. No, joking.
Okay. So on 4, which is 5, Zenger writes that, like the title Enthroned upon the Cherubim, Yehovah Tzevaot, the most common title of God in the Old Testament, is associated with the sanctuary at Shiloh, and especially with the Jerusalem temple. He writes that with this divine title here, Elohistically expanded, the psalm first of all rejects any idea that the crisis-ridden present is due to a weakness in Yahweh, or possibly even to his impotence in comparison to the gods of the enemies. At the same time, it implores Yahweh not now at last to employ his warlike power against Israel's enemies again, and thus to fulfill his obligation as king and shepherd. Tate writes that the how long in verse 5, ad matai, is a fairly common feature in laments, and suggests that the endurance of the people is nearly exhausted. He notes that God's neglect is being deliberately contrasted with his care in the wilderness, where the people dined on manna and quail, and had fresh water provided from the rocks. He argues that the how long is not a rejection of punishment itself, but implies that the punishment is deserved. On 5 through 7, which is 6 through 8, Klaus writes that the bread of tears makes us think of a disaster that lasts a long time, and not an acute threat. He writes that verse 6, which is 7, could well refer to the time of the decline of the Assyrian Empire, when the neighbors and enemies of Israel contend for the supremacy in the areas formerly ruled by the Assyrians. Gerstenberger writes that tears is the catchword of verse 5, which is 6, possibly indicating ritual whipping. Tanner notes that verse 7, which is 8, is a duplicate of verse 3, 4, except for the vocative. She writes that it is interesting that even if the problem is stated as God's anger, the people ask for God to cause them to return, acknowledging they are involved and culpable in the relationship. On 8 and 9, sorry.
How do you choose the? I mean, I'm assuming that you're getting a whole lot of different commentaries, and you're choosing which ones to feature, right?
Yes.
Okay. How do you choose them?
It's really it's a difficult task. I mean, I usually try to pick those that I find give the most interesting perspective of the verse or the verses. And I also try to sparse the commentary so that I don't try to be on a specific like 1 or 2 commentaries, but just take them as a whole, though it is difficult. But I try to take different perspectives and try to. I favor the critical commentaries, but I also get other commentaries like that of Tanner and Goldingay, though not a whole lot. Yeah, it's very like just read the commentary, see, will it be interesting enough? I think so. And
Okay.
I add it.
Okay. Continue.
Yes. Maybe you should first read some of the comments in the chat.
All right, so we have 600 now. We're up to 600 because Alira the Three sent another 50 gift memberships.
And there's also another comment by
Yeah, indeed. She's Alira the Free says, an investment. I see it as paying back in a small way. Please don't mention it. But I read the thing that she says don't mention it. She writes it at the end of a comment that I'm supposed to read.
Well, I don't.
Thank you very much, Alira.
Yes.
Okay. On 8 and 9, which is 9 and 10, Israel as a vine is a common metaphor in the Bible, as in Isaiah 5, 1-7, 27, 2-6, Jeremiah 2, 21, 12, 10, and Ezekiel 15, 1-8. In the blessing of Joseph, Jacob promises he will be a flourishing vine, quote unquote, in Genesis 49, 22. Tanner notes that the vine imagery is in contrast to Israel's portrayal as a flock in Psalm 79:13. She writes that this may indicate that verses 8-13 existed as a separate piece before being incorporated into this psalm, but it is also just as likely that there is a free exchange of the images in the prayers that come from the general agricultural setting of ancient Israel. Tate writes that the verbs of verses 8 and 9 emphasize God's causative action in the establishment of the vineyard. God took the vine out of Egypt and cleared the ground so that it took root and filled the land. He writes that it is obviously an allegory of the total conquest of the promised land. On 13, which is 14, boars from the forest ravage it. So, Peter, can you please show the pictures? Yes.
Are you talking about the iron?
Yes, so in the Masoretic text, the letter Ayin in the phrase boars from the forest, in Hebrew chazir miya'ar, is written above the line, which means that there is which means that there is a special character or meaning of the word miya'ar. So here I included the phrase from above is the Leningrad Codex, the center is the Aleppo Codex, and below is the Sassoon Codex. So traditionals, you can remove the pictures if you want. So
Lawrence, are you reading these?
I can try to.
No, I was just
the bottom one.
You're staring intently at the
easier.
screen. This makes sense to you, and that kind of impresses me.
No. It like I don't know any of these words.
Okay.
But I can try to like sound them but I can barely tell. Is that a vav? Is that the second letter? Is that a vav?
See,
he
says it doesn't make any sense,
Zion.
but he recognizes the letters.
See, it's a Zion. I wasn't sure if it was a vav or a Zion because it's not like because it's a lot easier in like type, right? If you type it, it's everything.
Yeah, and also modern Hebrew is gonna emphasize different parts of the letters. So, for example, especially in the middle one, or actually the bottom one as well, the yud just looks like a vav. But in like modern Hebrew, yud is always very small, very short, and a vav is long. And it's like, how do you differentiate between them in these older handwritten texts?
Yeah.
Okay, Alira the Free
more apparent.
Sent another 50 RN gift memberships, taking us to taking us to 650, and then she gave us another 10, taking us to 660. Come on now, I know you can do 6. Can you just do 6?
She did already.
She did. She did 5 and 1.
Yeah, there it is.
But there we go.
I forgot to put the 5 in there, but yeah, we're on 666.
Wow. It's amazing.
That's
Thank
a
you,
crazy
Alira.
amount. Like I know Alira's doing it for the memes, but that's a crazy amount of gifted memberships today.
Yes, indeed.
She's making up for next Saturday because we don't have a show then. So the ones for next Saturday are coming in on this show.
Yeah. So all the new people that are getting memberships and are getting pinged and they're joining the chat.
Several, yeah.
Join the Behold Network Discord.
Right. Yes, that's a very
Louder.
thank you. Isaac.
Louder.
And we'll
Louder.
learn to read
Behold.
together if you want.
So
Behold.
continue.
Peter will
Okay,
put a
so-
link in the chat, everyone.
Okay, so traditionals based on Midrash Psalms understood the boar from the forest to be Esau, as is written, "It devoured and broke in pieces, and the rest it trampled with its feet," in Daniel 7:7. Rashi writes that the boar has some signs of purity, and Esau too has the merit of the fathers. Some commentators, like Briggs, have suggested that this is an allusion to Egypt, reading Chazir mi Ye'or, Aleph instead of Ain, with Ye'or referring to the Nile. Krauss writes that if this reading is correct, then this would refer to the incursion of Necho in the time of Josiah. Alternatively, Briggs suggested that this is a clue to shift the reference from an assumed original with a reference to Egypt in order to indicate a reference to Rome. Tate, however, writes that the suspension is more likely because this was assumed to be the middle consonant of the entire Psalter. Zenger notes that a subtle theological statement may also be indicated in the Ein is to be read as an indication of the word Ein, which means eye, namely the eye of God that watches or protects his people.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yes, the letter Ayin, if you go back to like Proto-Semitic, where it looks like Egyptian hieroglyphic still, it's literally a drawing of an eye.
Mm-hmm. And the insects from the fields feed on it, on that same verse. The word used for insect is ziz, and its exact meaning is unclear. Septuagint and Vulgate read, "a lone wild beast," and Targum, "the cockerel of the field." Some traditionals identify the ziz as all the insects of the field, like Rashi and Hameiri, or a type of bird, according to Ibn Ezra and Ditani, or as a general name to the desert animals, according to Kimchi. Tate notes that P. Victor believed it referred to the leader boar, while D.W. Thomas believed that it is some sort of insect. He writes that field animals is a good guess. Likewise, Held reads, "small creatures that ruin the fields."
Yeah, it must be a later text thing, but the word ziz is used for the giant bird that is like together with the giant fish, the leviathan, and the giant ox, the behemoth. I don't know if I mentioned it before, like that Muslims also have the giant fish and giant ox, but I don't think they have the giant bird.
And they're all in the same island with John Goodman and Samuel L. Jackson.
I mean, in the pictures I've seen, they're literally standing on top of each other, like
I mean, yeah,
a flat
in
Earth
Jewish...
thing, you know, like they don't have 3 elephants; they have a giant fish, a giant ox standing on its back, and then the flat Earth on the back of the ox.
Okay.
I actually haven't looked on disease, but it apparently is like a griffin-like creature in Jewish mythology. At least in
But I think there's a story in the Talmud where it's described as it's standing in the water, like in the sea, and its head is touching the firmament, and its and its legs are like deep in the water. So it's like that's how big it is.
Oh, it's interesting.
I think there's another name for it, but I don't remember what it is.
Oh, that's interesting. So I looked at EBR, the Encyclopedia of the Bible and its Reception, and there is a lemma about Anzu, which is the name of the giant monster eagle with leonine head in Mesopotamian mythology, which is called Anzud in Sumerian and Anzu in Akkadian. And according to Amar Anus, the bird ziz in Hebrew Psalms and in rabbinical literature probably derives from the Mesopotamian Anzu. Some later folkloric beliefs about Near Eastern monster eagles, like Iranian Simurg, are also modeled on Anzu. So that's interesting.
So it
There's
wasn't
a-
like the rabbis didn't invent it because they were like, oh, we have a giant sea creature and a giant land creature. We need to have a giant creature of the air to like balance it
Yes.
out or whatever. They actually had
Yes.
it based on the Mesopotamian origin. Could have been the word sounded similar, so they used that word.
Mhm.
Or it could be direct, which is interesting.
Oh no, I was getting Anzu confused with Zu. Okay.
Yeah.
Zu is another character in Mesopotamian
Oh yeah.
mythology.
Yeah, Zeus. Yeah.
Yeah, Zu, when he steals the tablets that control the norms, like the tablets of destiny. Yeah, Ninurta's, this is what I've written down for him. Ninurta's sent to go fight him. When they meet at Zu's mountain, Zu covered the face of the mountain with darkness. Adad started storms within the darkness to help Ninurta. Okay.
Oh, and according to Batra 75a, these will be a part of the menu when the Messiah will come.
Oh, like Leviathan.
Like
Oh, so we're
like
gonna
the behemoth and seas and yeah.
Ooh, Leviathan sushi and Ziz Korean fried chicken.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
That's actually why
Korean fried
why all
Ziz.
these monsters are locked up at the edges of the universe. It's actually a giant freezer over there. So they're just
Oh, yeah.
he's just waiting to
See
thaw them.
how scientific the Bible is. They knew that space is cold.
Right. Oh wow, amazing.
Alira the Free says, I'd like to thank our wonderful host for a wonderful Saturday. This has been such a good show just before I pull an all-nighter tomorrow at work. Well,
And there's also another comment above.
yeah, well, I was going to save that one till we were done, but
Okay.
John Klein 67 says, can I get a, and it came to pass for giggles?
Come
You
on.
need you need the one in Reformed Egyptian, which is, and it came to pass. That's it.
Indeed.
Okay. So, on 15, which is 16, the son you have raised up for yourself. Gerstenberger notes that most exegetes agree that this phrase came in erroneously from verse 18b and should be disregarded at this point. Likewise, Kaus writes that this line, quote, has the effect of an addition, end quote. Tate notes that a transposition in these is also suggested by some. He writes that it is probable that 16b is an editorial revision in order to reinterpret the kingship language in verse 18 as applying to the vine, which is Israel. Zenger, however, writes that the Masoretic text should be retained. Tanner writes that while 16b could be an editorial repetition, its preservation in Septuagint and Targum make it possible that it is simply a repetition in the ancient poem. Goldingay writes that the son might be the son that Yahweh took firm hold of in Egypt to bring him out to be Yahweh's servant, rather than the Pharaoh's, notwithstanding the resistance of the Pharaoh who sought to hold onto him in Exodus 4:22 and 23. On 17, which is 18, Tate comments, quote, the son of humanity, Ben Adam, in the present context, simply becomes a poetic variant of son in 16b and man, Ish, in 18a. The expression may have had more exalted connotations in the usage of an earlier form of the psalm without divine metaphor, verses 2 through 8 and 18 through 20. Later Jewish tradition interpreted verses 16 through 20 in a messianic sense, but that is probably not the case with the present psalm, although it is possible to read verse 18 in a future sense. Quote, let your right hand be on a man of your right hand / on a son of humanity whom you will make strong for yourself, end quote. Without the reductional addition in verse 16b, this would be a very acceptable reading. The situation in the psalm is confusing, but I take it that the Masoretic text edition represents a demonarchizing, quote unquote, and demessianizing of the psalm. The future hope should be focused on the restoration of the vine without monarchy. And finally, on 18, which is 19, Zenger comments, quote, the vow of praise with which the first version of the psalm concluded, combines a promise of fidelity with the petition that those praying be brought to life again or kept alive, so that they may call upon Yahweh's name. A number of aspects of Israel's self-concept are interwoven here. 1. Israel knows that its life is the gift of its God, the shepherd imagery emphasizing this in the psalm. For that very reason, Israel struggles in this psalm for the renewed care of its God. 2. Life for Israel is above all life in the dimensions of freedom and well-being. The vine imagery in the psalm emphasizing this aspect. 3. Israel sees it as its life task to give witness to Yahweh's Godhead in the world of the nations. The vow of praise emphasizes this aspect, that we may call upon your name, quote unquote. That's it.
Okay. So I'm going to send out an email to the assembled panel here today to see when we can do this again. We will be doing Psalm 81 whenever that is. And I guess there's nothing else to say.
No,
Yep, nothing
at all.
Nope, just kidding. Join the Discord. It is the greatest Discord that has ever discorded.
It is so great that this is the only Discord that I'm at the moment.
Yep, that is true. That is true.
Wow.
But
Behold, network Discord.
louder.
It's definitely the best.
Behold!
Best chat on any Discord.
No, I'm not going to do it.
Okay. All right. And then good night.
Hasta la bye.
Just-
What do you mean? Yes. Yes. My dog is in front of its cage, and that always triggers the bird. Ha ha ha.